Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, joined by two very special guests and Kent. And here for got to start off strong, right? Starting off with
Someone
our
said,
2023 year in review. So this is where we go over everything that happened this year, kind of like a mini podcast, if you will, and talk about things that happened. So let's see. To my left, I guess left on the screen here, Alex. Quick intro.
Hello, I'm Alex. I'm the product lead for gameplay. We're all sick right now, so we all have cough drops. So
Yeah, we are.
apologies in advance for
Yeah,
any sniffles.
yeah. So Alex, this is your second one of these we've done before.
Yep.
All right. The actual special guest, Kent.
"Oh, thank you, Mort. Thank you." My name's Kent. I currently lead the set finalization team, which is kind of like the balance team. Before that, this year I was the lead of set 9, and I also work on a bunch of balance stuff with Mort. You might see me in some of his other videos too for the patch rundowns.
And Kent, this is your first one of these, even though you've been on the team like 3 years now.
Yeah, I've never done this before, so I don't know what to expect. But I kind of know what to expect. We'll see. We'll see how I do.
See, if he says he doesn't know what to expect, that means he didn't watch them. So
He definitely hasn't watched them.
I for sure have watched them. What do you mean? I watch all TFT content that's ever been printed.
Nice. And then last but not least,
I'm Wittrock, also known as Witty. I've been a designer on TFT since forever. I think I've been in all of these since we started doing
this. Is our fourth one together, Witty.
Yeah. So glad to be back. I've been the design lead for many sets, and I was the lead for set 10 Remix Rumble. So I'll mostly be talking about that because I'm looking at the calendar, and that's what I was working on basically this whole year. So
pretty much. So. All right, so basically the way it's going to work is we're just going to go through patch by patch. I'm going to talk about what was going on the live a little bit. And then if you guys want to bring up anything that was happening behind the scenes that I might forget about because my brain's fried, we'll go from there. But yeah, starting off the year, patch 13.1, which was all the way back in set 8.5. Not even that. I think it was set 8 still. This isn't 8.5.
Set 8.
This is still set 8. So, like, time is an illusion. We were still trying to balance set 8 with all the hero augments, and you can see we reworked the Lee Sin augment, and that totally went well. And yeah,
I'm looking at this graph, and I see blue battery removed. That's how long ago this was. Like blue battery existed in this game at the time. Oh my god.
Yep, a lot of buffs, a lot of nerfs, really big patches. I think this is when a lot of these patches we were looking at going, these patches are way too big, was a big thing going on. But the other thing that happened that was kind of behind the scenes, not really on gameplay side, but still a big deal, was Fortune's Favor. This is when Fortune's Favor came out, and turns out players really liked Fortune's Favor because it's TFT on crack, and you hit your 3-star 5 cost every game, and it's a little wild. So
yeah, players went nuts for Fortune's Favor. I think it was such a good Lunar New Year mode, and like especially with like the stuff we had going on in 8, it was the perfect combination for players to get hooked, and we brought it back since. But man, players like blew us out of the water with the reception for Fortune's Favor.
Yep.
And this is kind of when we started to figure out, we've always known, especially with the for fun patches, that something kind of in the middle-ish or back half of the set before, in this case, the mid set would feel good. So this was like, oh, great, we found another way to kind of keep folks engaged who want to do something different rather than just like keep trying to climb all the way till the end.
Yep. Some other fun ones here. This is when we were changing augment distribution because at one point prismatics were at like 35%. So there were just so many prismatic games. They were kind of losing what made them special. Loot adjustments with Krugs, carousel adjustments. We got rid of the 3-tier glove random one that would sometimes be 6 tiers.
Oh, Iniko's favorite carousel.
I mean, doesn't he call them all Kent carousels at this point?
Yeah, it's anyway? A Kent carousel.
It was a Mort carousel until at some point they became Kent carousels, and now that's what they are. So,
yep.
Let's see. One fun fact about this is January, right? So then this is when we first play tested set 9. This was like when set 9 first came into our, like, the designers first touched the set. Just like 5 months from ship. That was the first time anyone ever saw anything. It's wild how fast we move.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, set 9 is playtesting behind the scenes. We're also working on 8.5, trying to get that ready. I'm looking at these patch notes, and I just have to remember that admin was a thing and balancing all the different admin effects. Like we had hero augments, admin, like what? Every patch is like we have 600 pieces of content. Keep the patch notes small. It's
I
too
like how
much.
you look at the trait section and it's just all like 40 lines of admin.
Yes. It's too much. Witty, were you still on 9 at this point?
Nope. 10 is kind of really kicking off.
Okay.
We're I think a few months away from playtesting. We'll figure out where that is in the calendar. But at this point, I had done some very early work on 9, handed things off to Kent, so totally focused on 10.
God, these patch notes are long. Sheesh.
Oh yeah.
I guess, I mean, it was right off break also. Wasn't this when, like, Yumi was also in a weird spot, too? It was the Christmas of Yumi.
Oh, yeah,
weird isn't a good word for this. Yeah, weird. Yumi was weird.
True. All right, so that's how we kicked off the new year, was fixing a lot of 8 stuff. Then right away, instead of 13.2, we had 13.1c because all hell kind of broke loose. Alex, you probably have the best eyes into this, but
Yeah, this was insane. We weren't even sure if we were going to be able to ship a patch at all. And I remember sitting in a call for about 6 hours, and we had 2 lists. One of we absolutely have to ship these things, like they were like bug fixes, and the other half was like, if we can actually ship a patch, this is what Mort wants to do. Luckily, we were able to ship like the full patch, but there was a very high probability that like we were just gonna have to ship like 3 things and hope that they went through because there was no internal testing. We pushed everything directly to live, so there was no QA,
Yep.
nothing internally. We just all sat in a room with a bunch of engineers and just shipped and prayed.
This was slightly crazy to me because I think when I joined Riot, we were on patch like 3.14 or something like that. And I think this is the first time ever that I've seen a numbered patch get skipped. That's just like never happened. So it was like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, in the back end too, we were trying to get 8.5 out the door pretty soon after this, and then 9 was in like early development, but we were trying to meet deadlines, and we couldn't test anything, we couldn't change things, and the 8.5 crew was kind of freaking out and trying to make things work, you know, with like 2 weeks of dead time. It was chaotic. It was just super chaotic for Riot at the time.
Yeah, because we couldn't playtest for almost like, what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, so for 8.5, so for mid sets, we only have 3 months overall, and 8.5 also had to deal with Christmas during that, which was 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then we lost 2.5 weeks with the hack. So we lost a month and a half of playtesting, and we just could not touch the set at all. And I very distinctly remember like Peter and others being like, hey, like, you know, we can always like push the mid set or whatever. And you and I were both like, no, we're shipping this mid set. We're shipping it on. We're doing this thing.
Yeah, definitely one of those like if you only knew how rough it was at the time kind of things.
It's actually terrifying.
Yep. Yeah, patch-wise, looking at the patch, it was a relatively small patch, which, you know, kind of makes sense. So, rebuffing Yumi after we'd over-nerfed her a little bit. Aphelios trying to get the gun choices. Man, I know I've said this before to you guys, but every time we make a champion that's like, you get one of 3 options or choose these forms, it always gets solved to, like, just always choose this one. Aphelios was the same way. It was like always purple gun, then it was always blue gun, then it was always red gun, and
Yeah. This set also had, I mean, I think it was a really good learning because we saw that even with something kind of a little bit more interesting, players still gravitated towards whatever was the strongest. With admin as well, like kind of seeing how there's different stages of choices. We saw players, you know, opt in, put it in. Is there something good? If there's not something good, I take it out. And then if I have something good, I go to 4. Is there something good at 4? If not, I take it out. And there's always like a right answer. But I think it was a really good learning for long-term set development, seeing how it played out in 8.5 or in set 8.
Yep. 2 other funny ones that jump out in this patch. This is one I get to call out myself on. Lee Sin Cleansing Safeguard buffed from 12% to 18%.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, definitely one of those instances where, again, this is why I like to try to play with everything before I buff it or nerf it, is because, like, the stats were, like, terrible, but I hadn't had a chance to really screw with it, and I was kind of trusting the stats a little bit, so.
This is kind of what pushed us on, like, the strongest thing, though, right? Like, hero augments really started pushing our thoughts on, like, strongest is the only one that's affected, and we've taken that forward for 9 and 10.
Right, because of the whole double Lee Sin thing that was disgusting. Yep. Then the other one is I'm just reading these patch notes here, and it's talking about a Cruel Pact nerf, and it says the Augment's creator, the great Kent Wu, recommended we nerf Cruel Pact. So gotta love these Roger patch notes.
Oh, Roger's great.
They're good. So cool. Yeah. All right. Well, we get past January. We're on to February. Patch 13.3. And this is where we're getting ready for the mid-set, so the patch is relatively small. Adding things like gold to ancient archives, adjusting Ox Force. That'll certainly be the last time we adjust Ox Force. So, anything going on behind the scenes in February, early February?
Probably around this time. If we had just started playtesting 9, we probably went to player labs around this time, would be my guess. Which is when we have players come in and test the set. And Kent can give more details here, but like I do remember very distinctly, like players went crazy for portals. Like they were so excited, and it was probably some of our highest rated mechanic numbers ever. It was like right up there with augments. And we knew we had a banger on our hands after that lab.
Well, I remember sorry, not to interrupt, but I remember the portal conversation with Witty when we were first coming up with portals, and I think that was like the first time where it was just like, oh, this is galaxies, but better. This is easy. We're just doing this. Like, this is just a slam dunk. Like, we've never been like, yup, this is just a great mechanic that fast before in my life.
The crazy thing, so we did have player labs at the end of February here, and the crazy part is we didn't even have that many of the like good portals in yet. We kind of just had like a smaller batch of portals at this point, and we were mainly trying to verify the voting, in the beginning of the game, and it was just a slam dunk. Like, I mean, we kind of already had an idea, yeah, as Mort mentioned. It was like, we're gonna like this. It's a nice social moment. It's a lot of fun, and yeah, players loved it. There was also a lot of other. We were also able to get a lot of verification, all of these player labs about like certain traits that players liked. Kind of like Noxus, players kind of like the whole thematic of that thing. But yeah, it's in this 1 month for set 9, basically, we went from first playtest into like 75% lock of the set of like design of champions. So we got pretty far just in 1 month, and it's kind of how we have to do things in order to be able to ship on time, because like all the other teams downstream need to do their work for art and polish and all that good stuff.
By contrast, I have noted on my calendar, we play tested just within the small set 10 pod at this point, the very earliest version of Headliner at this point.
Oh.
And we were like, there's kind of something here, but we knew that we had a long journey to go.
Yep.
So that's kind of where that was at.
Yep.
This is also, we were pretty much settled on at least making new skins exclusive to TFT, and the general shape of like, because the month before this we were like, oh, maybe we have to add a champion or two to like KDA to make sure it's a bigger thing. And then we were like, whoa, what if we did like a lot more of these? And so we had, I don't think we had gotten all 9 of them nailed down, but we had a pretty good idea of like 6 or 7 of them at this point.
Yeah. The portal thing, like I said, I remember that Witty, even like the first playtest when we did portals, it was just like 1, maybe 2 games. I was like, yep, this is just gonna work. It's so good. The other, you mentioned the characters. I remember talking to you about KDA, because I remember for the longest time I was ranting to you about Leona. I was like, what is Leona? She's got a shield. We need a tank. And Leona didn't happen, but that's okay. Looking at these patch notes, there is one other thing we have to talk about. Alex, this is another one of you and I's crazy calls. Instead of waiting for mid-set, we gave 4 hero augment rerolls. So, on just a random patch, because screw it.
We just dropped that. Yeah. I remember we were probably talking like late at night one night. And then I distinctly remember I was like, all right, let me think about what we want to do. Like, should we just wait for the mid set? And I probably messaged you like 20 minutes later, and I was just like, ship it. Like we're just shipping it. But I also remember like not many people on the team thought that was the right call. Like I remember sitting in the office talking through that change with a lot of people because they were so nervous that it was going to really like disrupt the mechanic and the set. But I think it shows a lot of like the trust of the team, of like they know that like even if they don't fully agree, to just go along with it and trust the people that know the space more and better. And Linda in particular was like, I don't know, but I really trust you and Mort, so just do it and let me know how it goes. So yeah, I was happy we didn't wait for the mid set to get that out.
Yeah, that seemed like a big win. So
it turned out to be a really positive change for the game, and I mean it landed well. So
yep. And then last one I'll talk about for this patch because it's in here, and I have to yell at Roger again. But it says Riot Mort went through all the item tooltips and reformatted them to make them all pretty like. And I specifically told him not to put my name on this. I'm just like, I did it because I needed to, and my OCD wouldn't let it go. And then he's like, I put it in the freaking Roger, man.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I don't know how much players know about it, but like game designers, we make the things, we also have to write the tooltips and make them look good and make sense to players. It's kind of part of the design. It's like, how do we format this to make it intuitive to you, to understand what we're going for? Where do we put the symbols and things like that? There are some people who are more specialized in this than other designers, but
so
yeah,
so
we do
this
have to do that work.
I'm gonna laugh because like I'm not actually that great at writing these tooltips, but like there was this thing that was bothering me where sometimes like the AD would be in front of the AP, or the AP would be in front of, like, they were just in random orders, whatever order the designer put them in all the items. And I was like, no, I'm fixing this now.
Yeah, I think we went through like a period too where the tooltips were not as high. Well, like starting in set 9 and 10 especially. Like I think we improved our tooltips a lot. So, also, we made like a big effort to do it. So
yep.
Yeah, back then, yeah, there were some questionable ones for sure.
Yep. All right, moving on. 13.4. So still not a mid set here. A lot of adjustments, a lot of item stuffs, hero augment stuffs, rework stuffs, cosmetics. Hey, it's a Chibi-Ari.
That's one we got to talk about, right, Alex?
Pretty good.
So, otherwise, is this the mid set? Am I crazy? No.
I don't think so.
No, I think that's the next patch. So, yep, admin 4, stuff like that, more balance, trying to get the set in the right spot. Pretty crazy. So, all right.
Yeah.
Anything else here?
No, just still like, surprisingly large amount of changes, but a lot of item focused changes, I guess, at this point, trying to get those into good salt before mid set. But
yeah, I mean, I think the big part was just 8 had so much content, right? With like the hero augments, the admin, everything else. It was just a lot.
This was kind of the year we became like even more. Well, I guess we get more and more ambitious every single set, but like this was kind of the year we like. With set 8, 9, and 10, we got more and more increasingly ambitious with the amount of content we were printing. So
yeah, I mean, I'll blame myself a little bit here because 8, we had a mechanic that didn't work out, and so we had to kind of do a last minute mechanic. And typically, like, one of the ways to band-aid design a last minute mechanic is a lot of content, right? Like, that way the burden's not on any particular piece. And so hero augments were an example where it's just like, yeah, some like half of these are probably good, I hope, So, but at least we had a mechanic. We take those.
Yeah, and if you have a lot, they kind of help each other out too. When, especially with 4 rerolls.
All right, 13.5. So again, still not the mid set. So, item distribution overhaul. So this is when Phil got to ship his first big thing. This was a big deal. This was the first thing I helped train Phil on, and he did a great job on this. But this is a lot of really nice quality of life stuff. There's still room for improvement, but like, for example, the first PvE mob you kill always giving you the 6 gold worth of stuff now. Oh, so good.
Yes.
So good.
That change, like, a lot of people won't care about it, but like, man, being able to actually buy things in your first shop is so nice. Like, compared to in the past, you felt screwed when you got an item first. So
I think for a lot of players too, it's like they may not notice like in the front of their brain, but in the back of their brain, they're like, oh, I can do so much more, and it just feels better now. And I think that feels moment is really cool. Yeah, Phil crushed this. He did a great job.
Yep. I think it also showed like there's still room for improvement in this system, right? Like I think right now, if anything, it's shown that like, wow, the system can be good, but can it be even better? Things like, do tome drops still need to be a thing? Should I really be down 2 items? But it's a lot better than being down 4 that it was before. So it was definitely a big improvement.
Oh yeah, this was the first patch where you could only be down 2 items to the player in the lobby that got random drop. Yeah, from random drops, and obviously not regardless of augments and things like that. But like, yeah, that also has felt a lot better. But yeah, I think there's also like we've learned since March here that like there's more work to be considered.
Yep. Then we also had to do more hero augment distribution stuff with like what was tailored and what was not tailored, because that was another thing that just like, man, sometimes you would hit nothing. I know there were certain tournament games where players would roll down and hit absolutely nothing, and there went their entire game. So pretty rough there.
I don't know if you remember this more, but do you remember how just cursed these were in terms of the tagging system and how like half of them were off, and that is why the distribution was so wonky with these?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because remember, I
Yeah.
was the one who went back. Like, I think it was a Soju game. I watched him not hit his hero augment, and I was like, why the heck did this not show up? And I went and looked in the GDS file, and it was like tagged as the completely wrong thing. And it was like, oh, that explains why this didn't show up. And it was like, oh, God. But again, 116 pieces of content, and like 2 were off. It's like, well, that screws the whole thing up. So I do remember that. Anything else behind the scenes here?
The skins for set 10 were definitely churning by this point because I have a thing on my calendar that just says send Hyperpop doc to Tori, and I remember that I was probably one of the only people that really listened to Hyperpop, and I sent her a giant thing because the original sketches they had were very like bright and like shiny and fun, and I was like, no, 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 it needs to be like darker and more online and self-evasive. And I sent her this huge doc. Like Tori is amazing, but I feel bad that she had to read through all of this. That like helped show like what Hyperpop actually was, and I think what they got was like perfect, and they nailed it. But yeah, the skins were definitely churning by this point.
In Tori's
Yeah,
defense, I still barely know what Hyperpop is.
Well, you're a boomer.
Yeah, and we're about halfway through or so, like building out the set so that we can fully play test it for the first time. So the designers are just churning away at kind of getting the prototype set up.
Nice.
Yeah, in set 9 land, we had like soft locked a lot of things so other teams could start working, but we were still doing minor structure shifts. We're still changing champions, especially 5 costs at this point. March was a big period for us, like getting our 5 costs in the right spot. I think it's around the time when we gutted Malzahar and took him out from the 5 cost spot and put someone else in. So it was around here. We're locking our final structure shift and things like that. So things are really moving along, and we're really quickly approaching having to like actually lock the designs of a lot of the champions and stuff like that too. So we're getting really close to ship. Just shocking.
You realize I'll still never forgive you for that, by the way, right? Witty pitches set 9 with Malzahar as a 5 cost. I'm like, great, let's go. You remove him.
There's so many reasons why he didn't work out, Mort.
But one that mattered, which was
you know what? I wasn't able to even. I was leading the set and I couldn't get Lillian as a 5 cost, or even in the set at all.
She'd already been a 5 cost. Killing me. All right, moving on. 13-6. All right, now we're at mid patch. We did it. Despite losing a month of time, we have shipped a mid patch. So.
Oh wait, just one more call out before we shipped Team Planner last patch, 13.5. We shipped to PC, which I think is huge. Players love Team Planner, as Mort knows. They're always asking for more features for it.
So we did ship it, but they didn't love it yet because it didn't have the key feature that made them love it yet.
The marker.
Yeah, the marker was the thing that really propelled it. That's not out yet. So, because that marker, that's what propelled it to stardom. But you're right. Team Planner came out to PC, which was a big deal. So, all right, mid set. So, big thing here, if you look at this patch note, Dev Diary, future of mid sets. This is when we announced to players that we weren't doing mid sets anymore, which was great because at this point, Alex, you've been at the point of this, you've been there, what, like a year and a half, 2 years?
Yep.
And that was like the first thing you helped start working on.
Yeah, this is the first thing that you and I worked on together was like making this. I remember you sent me a calendar, and then I sent like a new version of the calendar. I was like, actually, we could do it this way, and you were like, oh heck yeah. So yeah, that was literally the first thing we worked on together. So it was cool to see it come together, pretty quickly for how big of a shift it was for the team.
Yeah, it took a lot of convincing, but once we did, it all made sense, and I think has played out well.
So far, so good.
Which did also mean, I was trying to remember, but I think the whole time we were working on 8.5, basically, we knew that we were going to stop doing mid-sets. We were like, all right, we're doing 2 more of these. I don't think we knew at 7.5.
Correct.
But by 8.5, we knew that, we're going to stop doing these, which is always a little awkward because we're like, we know all the problems. we don't want to implement any more like
Yep.
long-term fixes to improve this because we were just going to stop doing them.
Yep.
So let's just kind of keep doing what we've been doing. So that's where we were at mentally.
Yep. Cool. Mid-set glitched out carousels.
Whoa, one of the big things that shipped with this glitch out carousels was the items popping off the carousel unit when you got back to your board. This is when it first came out.
Yes.
And this was a huge quality of life improvement.
Yes.
Like, I don't know how we lived with before this.
So that's a great call out, and one of those things that we have to keep doing as a TFT team is challenging the things that have been forever as being okay or not. And this is a great example where, like, back in the day, I mean, Witty can tell you, back in the day when we first made the thing, it was like, this will be a cool challenge where it's like you have to make a decision around which champ and which item, and sometimes no, it's annoying as hell, and just give me the damn thing I want, and stop punishing me for them being attached to each other, and it was a lot better. So, Witty, as someone who was there for that, how do you feel about that shift?
Oh yeah, it was totally fine. There like had stopped being a decision really associated. Like, and a lot of people just like almost borderline didn't expect that's how it worked, even though they knew that's how it worked. Especially when they would take a champion that would make a 2-star, they would be like, "Wait, what happened to my item? It's on your 2-star champion. That's just how it works." But people had never like fully wrapped their heads around it, so it made sense to change.
Oh, the thing we lost was the funny content of like someone grabbing a component, and they already have a component, and it combines into something like really bad for their unit. Why do I have a Warmogs on my carry?
Yep. So you're saying we should put it back? Is that what you're saying, Ken?
For content, this is what people want, right?
Okay. Glitched out carousels were great though. The two items, I actually still think there's more we can do in this space, right? Like, have we ever done a carousel with 3 components? Like, why not? Like, we can do a lot in this space, I think.
Yeah, this was such a easy win as a mid-set mechanic, especially with all the stuff we had behind the scenes going on. Like, these just felt good. Like, they were just fun. It was just more stuff. Players love stuff. So yeah, this was a solid mid-set mechanic.
Yep.
And like many things, this hasn't fully gone away. We absorbed some of this design into the portal system. So
yep, I always vote for loaded carousel because it gives me a higher chance to actually get the item I want off the damn carousel. So
it's surprising to see that we still had loaded dice at this for 8.5. That hasn't been removed yet. So
yeah, loaded dice took a while, but once you realize it's a random between 0 and 5 duplicators, it's like, this isn't a great design.
Yeah.
But the oops all threat boards with loaded dice was too fun. Any agreeers?
It was. I enjoyed it. You hit all 3 costs.
It's
let's
great.
go.
I'm reading these patch notes here. Oxforce has always been in a weird spot for us. Again, that use of weird. Weird
is a word to describe it. Yeah.
The trait still has the brief invulnerability, since this is the most visible and interesting aspect of the trait. I'm a big fan of it, but someone on the team, Mort, thinks less of it. Oh, God, I hated Oxforce so much. I really did. Cool.
Look at these admin. Like a full fourth of our patch notes is just admin updates.
I hate it.
Like, hello?
There's so much admin content.
And despite all the admin reworks, it still basically was like, here are the 3 you choose, and the others you ignore completely. Oh, God, I hated it.
Once in a while, someone cooked up something really interesting with admin. Like, once in a long while, but that's not worth all the other times when you have to, like, everything else just didn't work. So, Like, the AD Camille builds was fun once in a while.
Yep.
But, yeah.
Other things that happened on this mid-set, double up. This is where we had to do the get rid of item sending because the meta had gotten so degenerate where you gave one person all the items and the other person just played Brawler or whatever.
Oh, it was funneling with Brawler, and the one team just stalled until the other board wipes everyone really quickly because they have infinite items, and it comes reinforced and wins.
So that was the last time double up got some really big attention. So it's been a while, but honestly, it kind of made the mode less fun. It was one of those things like we had to do it for balance, but God, it made the mode less fun. So.
And around this time, we had started playtesting the Soul Fighter game mode, so that's kind of where mode stuff is at. We're very much like coming off the back of I want to call it Chunk's treasure, but that's not what it's called at this point in
Fortune's
time.
favor, yeah.
Fortune's favor. Fortune's favor. And then we talked about it a little bit earlier, but we were like, okay, let's kind of fix our tooltips for set 9. So we're doing this there's all this discussion I'm looking at in the designer channel about how do we like this formatting. We've got a lot of new people on the team as well, or new-ish at least, that have kind of different perspectives on what's more intuitive for tooltips. So we're trying to kind of get our collective brains around the new tooltip format.
Makes sense.
Yeah, just as a refresher, it was like our old tooltips used to describe things and also say like, deal 400% of your AD to this unit. And the bottom section was just the scalars. And then this was a huge discussion led by Liv. I know Witty was involved, Giovanni was involved, lots of people involved in updating, like modernizing our tooltips to just say the number, and the calculations are at the bottom, and it's made it's shortened our tooltips so much. You'll see like compare set 8 and set 9 tooltips and set 10. So I think it was a big improvement.
So, and then with 8.5 out the door, that means the 8.5 pod got to take their break and get ready for set 11, because most of them moved on to 11 at that point. So, secrets.
It's wow, that's crazy how with a 1-year development cycle, kind of like how early they move on to the next set.
Like 10 got some of that, but 11 was the first one to really get the no, you get a full year. So. All right, 13.7. We're cleaning up mid-set launch stuff. Laser core needed work, some hero adjustment, a lot of buffs, things that weren't quite working, etc., etc. So
there's some really cool stuff in this mid set.
Yeah.
Like Ezreal, Infiniteam. Like this is a pretty solid mid set.
Oh, Morgana.
Morgana was great. See, I was gonna say for everything there was good. Then there was Hacker and Oxforce, but. That's the thing. It was a lot of highs and a lot of lows. So we also had that really weird thing where like Laser Core 4 didn't exist, so we had to fix Laser Core 4 for this patch to make it a real thing. So Laser Core kept having to get adjusted. But yeah, there was some good stuff. The first set where we've ever had 2 of the same champion, Ezreal and Ezreal. So cool. Yeah, otherwise this is where we start getting ready for, competitive seasons, stuff like that. All right, nothing crazy here. A lot of bug fixes, which, mid-set with 2 months, that's what happens, a lot of bugs.
It's kind
of
surprising to see how many patches we have for 8.5. I mean, I guess it's 3 months. I mean, that's pretty standard. 6 patches is
we're
normal.
Going to talk about that when we get to 9, because 9 was very different by comparison to 8.5. So
yeah, we can talk about that when we get there.
Yep. Oh. All right, 13.8. Patches are starting to get smaller at least.
Oh,
but
sorry,
go ahead.
No, you go. Sorry, I didn't mean
I was going to say I see reworked Oxforce. so
So this is when Mort hits his limit right here. 13.8. Mort had enough.
I also see buffed scoped weapons, and at this point, this augment is fine, but later on we can talk about this augment more.
Yep. Adjusted underground. Oh yeah, Mecha Malphite. This is such a weird chibi to come out. Of all the champions, we got Malphite, but kind of cool. He had a good finisher.
He has a great finisher.
I'm a Malphite enjoyer, so. On set 9 in set 9 land, this is like the latter half of April, which means we're 1 month away from PBE, which is wild. But this is when we had another one of those player labs to really test out Legends. This is kind of when Legends was kind of nearing its final iteration. We've got a lot of things in place. We've got the client set up for it, all that good stuff. So late April was when players got to test it.
Yeah, Legends. We have not talked much about Legends, and that's because there's a whole weird sort of what Legends motivation was that we can't really get into, but definitely one of those hard mechanics that for a while. Remember that there was that brief moment we almost cut portals to make room for Legends?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
On 2 fronts. One of our team was at the brink, with set 9. We could not make any more content. Because we also did the augment refresh for 9.
Yep.
So we had Legends, the whole set, an augment refresh, and all those portals that Sam broke his back over making. Our memory budget was pushed to the max for set 9.
Yep. But yeah, there was this brief, like, I remember this 2-day thing where, like, I pulled Kent and Sam aside and was like, we're gonna put portals on the backlog for a bit because we have to do legends, and here's why. And then I forget what happened, but something happened where we're like, nah, JK, we can do both. Do you remember, Alex?
Yeah, we figured out a way to. The issue was the pop-up picture of the legend, memory-wise.
Oh, right.
Like that was just so costly, and we had to figure out a way to like preload them in based only on yours, and we were able to do that to save enough memory for us to do portals.
Oh, I remember you guys talked to me about that, and I was like, I get it, but man, I was sad because portals were so good, and we already had so many good portals cooking. So yeah, scary conversation.
I also remember having a conversation with you, Alex, and Peter around this time because I'm very focused on 10, and I was hearing some of the discussion about, we might have to cut portals, and I was like, if you're gonna cut a mechanic, I'm very why are you not cutting legend, right? Like portals is the one that is thematic to the set, is testing really well. So if you had to pick one, I would pick legends. Obviously, we were able to do both, which was good, but I was like, that surprised me at least.
See, it's funny because you said which was good. We were able to do both. I'm not sure players would agree.
Fair.
Some players did not like Legends. Some did, but some learning there.
Yeah, Legends ended up landing. This ended up being a little bit of conversation about Legends, but I think Legends ended up in the very beginning. It was very positive, and I think over time we saw how it degraded into how players behaved around it and things like that as they got a lot more reps into it. So I mean, in the beginning, players did generally like Legends. So
well, I mean, Legends. Oh, so go ahead, Witty. You're gonna say that.
Two other things happened around this time. One legend related that I almost had forgotten about. Here's where we have a big discussion about how augment reroll should operate in the set. Because we had been coming off of four rerolls, but 4 rerolls didn't really make sense with the way that Legend operated.
Yep.
So we were like, do we have like back to 1 reroll? Do we give you like a lock button? I know was a lot of the discussion. And then eventually we were like, here's a version where you individually reroll them. And then that just rolled into set 10 basically. Even with Legends not in the game, we were like, that system just worked out really well. There's a little bit more, both more choice and more decision making around your augment choice. So I had forgotten that because that was a whole discussion.
Okay, on that one, that's a good example of a conversation though where there's a time where there are too many cooks in the kitchen sometimes and it's too much feedback because the team was growing, and so we were starting to like figure out what that line of feedback was. Because I know with that one, I went to Alex, I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And then we got like 19 things of feedback and ended up right back where it was like, nope, 1 reroll for, like, we had the answer and we wasted a lot of time kind of circling around it. And that was one of those like, okay, as we grow, we're going to have to learn when to like, nope, this is the right answer and go versus, nope, this feedback is very useful rather than, try to get everything. That was a really rough one. I remember not being pleased how long it took us to get to that one.
Yeah, honestly, I think that was good learning for like you and I in particular. Of like sometimes we just need, like when we know we're right, we just need to move forward with it and say like, this is our path. Here's what we're doing. Just let's figure out how to make it happen now.
Right, which is not always, but yes, sometimes.
Correct, for sure. But yeah, I remember there was so much back and forth around those rerolls. The lock argument was like very strong. A lot of people were just worried that it was going to become too like many decisions. You were going to have to like compare this augment and then this one and then this one and this one. It was just too much for a player to do. So like all their like thoughts were completely valid around it. But
but we had the answer. Yeah. And then what was the other one, Woody?
The other one was just, I think this is about the time we kind of reestablished a more strict framework around how units should scale with star level. Because I think we had kind of drifted in past like many sets as to kind of how those things work. And I remember like you, Mort, making a post about like, hey, here's the new way we're going to approach this. I think a lot of the set 9 champions got like standardized to that. And we've held to that like framework pretty, there's always little places where there's exceptions, but that's mostly smoothed out both the way that players think about how units start up, and it's made set design a lot easier as well when you can be like, no, this is how you set up a champion to just properly scale with star level.
Yeah, because we were, again, the team was growing. I was finally having time to like actually put things down on paper and get a little thoughts into there. So that was kind of nice. But yeah, the whole 1.5, 1.5, 1.5 to 3, yada yada that we have now. So
yeah, this is a really good point to bring up, because kind of brought up both sides of like, this was the first year our team, really grew and everyone's like ramping up, things like we have a lot more resources. We're learning how to work as a bigger team this year. And obviously that comes with positives and things that we need to that are good, which is, we get to do things like this. There's also the downsides of we're learning how to work as a bigger team, and we need to figure out how to, function efficiently too.
Yep.
Cat.
Yep. That's what Mal's is waking up. All right, moving on to 13.9. All right, small patch again, buffing a few champions, nerfing Garen and Misfortune and stuff like that. This was when we did our first normals with portals. So, you remember this, Alex?
Oh yeah, this was our experiment to see if we could do an elongated mid set that didn't impact competitive scene, but also do stuff that's more impactful and for longer. And I think it went really well. The engagement was really strong. We've tried a lot of different things with for fun patches, but I was really happy with how this one turned out. Players loved it and like engaged with it quite a bit near the end of the set.
Yep, I think some of those last portals at the end were pretty fun. And again, it always shows that near the end of the set, people are ready to like kind of crank the dial up a bit and just like, all right, let me see that fun stuff I couldn't quite hit. I think like if you look at set 10 now, the people that never got to experience like 10 heart steal or something are going to be like, give me my set 10 heart steal, So, but yeah, portals.
I also like that, we're doing the thing where it teases the next set, like having portals players start thinking about what could it be, what's going to happen in the next month. And so it's a lot of fun to see that.
Here's another fun one for you, Witty. 3-star 5-cost champions now all have an additional 4,000 health.
There's been a few times over the last few years where we're talking about 3-star 5 costs, and we're like, all right, how do we make them stronger? And then we just do it. We're like, all right, now they're stronger. Or I remember the time, I don't remember which player. Some player was just like,
it was Gunmei, I think.
Gunmei was like,
it was GV8. It was definitely
GV8. GV8 was like, I wish they were huge, and I was like, great, they're huge.
They're
next
huge
patch.
now.
That's fine. Great idea.
Yep.
Behind the scenes, we're still, maybe this is a couple weeks off, but in set 9 land, the big thing we're still finishing up in the set. I'm seeing posts from Giovanni working on Rise. So he's like doing all the different Rise variants at this point.
Yeah.
Rise. No.
Should we talk about? Yeah, one of the things, Giovanni is a crank and he works really quickly, but having him, he made like 10 5 costs in making Rise. In hindsight, it was like we could have done so many other things other than make 10 of these Rises. But yeah,
to his credit, and I'm the biggest critic of Rise, this, but to his credit, Rise was an amazing back of the box sticker. Like, holy cow, look at this champion that adjusts to the portal, has 10, like, great concept. And if we'd started 2 months earlier, probably would have been executed amazingly. But we didn't, and it came in hot, and half the spells were undercooked, and what a good concept.
Not at all trying to knock Rise. It was just, we were working on so many things at the time. We were trying to get Legends fully polished up. We were trying to, finish up portals, and there were still a few designs that we needed to finish and things like that. There's just so much stuff to do, and we're like a month from PBE, or less than a month by now. So but yeah, you're right, it's super cool. If only we had like just a little bit more time to cook on
if
Rise.
someone came to me now and pitched something like Rise for 12 or 13, I'd be like, let's go.
Yeah,
it'd be great. Alex might not, but
yeah, I'd probably still be a no. I do remember this is probably when you, Kent, and I were having like our like daily meetings of just like checking in on how things were going. And I remember every day the Giovanni update would just be, he's working on Rise, like for like 2 weeks straight.
Oh, it was like 3 weeks. Yeah, it was
we could be doing so many other things. Giovanni's so skilled, and we got him. I mean, he made a sick champion, but also we could have done so much more.
Yeah. I mean, because you work to make sure every single version of Rise like looks good and feels good too. So like, it takes time to get there. Which is why it took so much time.
And in terms of competing kind of timelines and new challenges, this is where I'm ready to have the team start playtesting early versions of set 10.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like, oh, but we're like a month and a half before shipping 9. I see a few points at which we're playtesting Soul Fighter. So I'm like, anybody want to playtest set 10? And everyone's like, nope, we're busy doing other things. So we're playtesting. We're not even doing 8-person lobbies most days. We're like randomly grabbing people. So we're making progress for sure. But the amount of like exposure the set has is pretty low. And I think the thing that was the most distinct is the really important stuff very early tends to be how things are landing like at a high level, especially like thematically, right? Like, are there things that people are really excited for, and are people kind of getting it? And we weren't getting that exposure. So we're kind of going back and forth internal to the team on like trait names, how do we name the bands? Is it genre names? Is it unique names? Like, our classes are going wildly between like, oh, really complicated, really simple. So we're kind of shifting all around, kind of, and all internal to the pod. There's very little outside feedback that's happening.
Wasn't this the first time really we've actually had like 2 sets ready for playtest at the same time? Really?
Yes. Yeah.
So
I think this is
growing pain.
Yep.
Because we didn't have even have the environment set up properly to be able to playtest them twice, right?
Oh yeah, we're doing really weird stuff of how we're like getting into lobbies. Yeah, just kind of very, very new problems.
Yep. All right, moving on to 13.10. Patches are getting very, very tiny here. This is a very, very tiny patch.
Oh, I think this is Worlds.
Yeah,
patch
usually
or Championship
this is like
patch,
World
right?
patch. So this is what you like to see, though, right? Like, hopefully this is what we start seeing for even set 10 soon. But like, small patches, good stuff. Treasure Realm ship.
This is a strong indication that more is on the next patch or on the next set at this point. Like,
yes, I mean that is absolutely true.
Live is getting what it needs, but literally like 99.9% of our efforts are going towards 9 at this point.
Yep. Treasure Realm shipped with the mecha map, so that was pretty cool. Yep. More normals with portals, stuff like that. But yeah, set 8 championship. Yeah, this was the first time I think I flew out to Spain as well to do the casting, which was a very, very fast trip. I just remember landing, being jet lagged, getting ready, and then the next day casting for 3 days, and then flying back. And it was like, okay, that was a trip.
Oh, it was a chaotic time for you because we were also going to PBE on 9 soon, and then you were like, you dropped your projects on 9. You were helping out with some stuff on 9. You left for Spain. You came back, and you're like, where are we at? Okay, we need to go influencer playtesting soon. Like, it was a very chaotic time.
Yeah, I mean, those are always the hardest times for me personally because it's like making sure the set's in a good spot, getting ready. Like, I always do the influencer decks to try to help you guys out, so that's always a pain. The casting stuff, too much. Self-inflicted wounds. But overall, set 8 championship was relatively solid.
Yeah, it was a good one. Setsuko played well until the final lobby. Like, him and Replay like the day before crushed. Like, it was crazy.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of Underground. Underground did really well that tournament. So cool. And then set patch 13.11, we did one of my classics, which is buff everything that sucks. So
we also did a Linda classic with the Star Guardian Urgot.
Oh, yes. Okay, so this is great because this was actually Roger gets the credit. Roger was like, I really want this to happen. And then Linda was like, okay, cool, we're gonna make it happen. You had to approve it, Alex.
Which I did instantly. How could I not?
Yeah. And so it's Urgot's a Star Guardian for no reason other than because we can. But that's also why I love working on TFT is we just do stuff like this where we're just like, okay, why not?
There was a callback if people remember the set 8 marquee where Star Guardian Urgot is like Urgot is a big fan of the Star Guardians and like ooh-woos over them. So like it was a callback to that video that we made about the set itself.
Yep. Now obviously the other big thing that happens when we hit this patch is set 9 goes to PBE. So we get like the dev drop, we get all the spoiler stuff, players are playing it now. Set 9 is happening.
Towards the end of May, we had influencers playtesting, start releasing all the videos. I think this is the first set where we start doing spoiler season, if I remember correctly, where yeah, we're just dropping little hints here and there, and it was a lot of fun. We're seeing all that on social media, and then at the very, very end of May, that's when PBE started, and spoiler season ramped up to that Monday, and then boom, Tuesday, everyone got to play.
Do you realize we've been talking for 50 minutes and we just got to set 9?
It was a good year.
We did a lot this year. So,
Yeah.
general PBE impressions, if I remember correctly, were solid. I remember doing a lot of balance work, especially around like on the rises and stuff. But I remember it being a relatively solid start.
Yeah, there weren't any like crazy outliers on any day of the PBE that like completely warped a day or anything that I remember.
I don't remember. Was there anything bugged? Usually we have something.
Yeah,
that's
usually
like
there's something that's just like, oh,
bugged,
they're cloning
right?
items, or yeah, but nothing I recall.
Mhm.
All right, anything before we launch? All right,
Yeah.
moving on to 13-12. Runeterra Reforged launches. We got a cinematic that was pretty solid with like Cho'Gath's foot and Jinx and all that stuff, and Chonk. It was the first cinematic with no Pengu.
Oh,
So,
was it?
yeah.
And still no cinematics with Talker, which is really weird. The best little legends. No representation.
So, yep, Runeterra Reforged, lots of cosmetics, set 9, which, again, I still think, like, portals were great. The set 9 champs and traits, great. Will it be marred down by legends and, like, the TF legend? Probably. That's the thing that I think that prevents it from being, like, an S tier set, but still a very solid set overall.
Yeah, and in hindsight, I think the set without legends would have like a lot of its problems wouldn't have existed if legends didn't exist, to let players force some of the things that it enabled. Also, legends kind of led to some like we'll see in immediately the next patch where we made a bunch of legend changes, try to balance them. But the meta launched really good on 13-12. Not really good, but it was in a pretty good spot. There's a good amount of comps playable. But legends were not in a good spot. Everyone was, I think, playing either Ezreal or Ornn at this time, and it was like
It wasn't Ezreal yet.
It was Ornn.
It was
Or
Ornn and
just
TF.
Ornn.
It was Ornn and TF.
Ornn and TF.
Okay, yeah, Ornn and TF, and then we had to make a bunch of changes to the Ornn items too short after, and we buffed a bunch of the other legends in the next patch, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing to Legends' credit is it exposed a lot of flaws in TFT as a game, right? Like, for example, RFC is an item. Yes, you can force triple RFC because of Twisted Fate, but like our understanding of the implications of the power of RFC on a champion led to a world where we go, okay, it's finally time to admit that RFC is probably not a healthy item, at least in the core item system. So it's like a lot of improvements came from those weaknesses being exposed in the game, in my opinion.
I do agree. But on the other side, though, like Legends did have a lot of positives. Like casual players really
Yes.
did love them. Like I think Legends is of two worlds. One, it's getting min-max to hell, which created a horrible experience for a lot of sweaty players and competitive players.
Yep.
But the other side is like it gave a really healthy handhold to a lot of players that just wanted to go in with a game plan of some kind and figure out like, man, I got to figure all this stuff out, but at least I know I'm gonna have these couple augments and I can make a game around it.
Yep.
So I do want like we got to call out like Legends did do a ton
yeah.
of good for a lot of casual and like lesser engaged players, which is awesome.
Yep. It helped teach us some things that like we can probably try to reach for in the future of what players enjoy, and we can give it to them in a different way, right?
Yep.
Also, before we move on, I want to call out all of our UI changes for set 9 because they were really positive and they're
Yes.
sticking around too.
Yes.
Inspect panel, inspect on carousel, item recommendations, and the trait inspect. When you go to the trait, you can see the little like you can hover and see the unit, because in set 9 it was less of a problem because you kind of could see the base skins, but in future sets you're like, is that Lee Sin or is that Malphite? Like I can't really tell, and then it has its name now. So all these huge UI improvements, I think that launch with the set really helped do a lot.
Yep. All right, one more before we move on from this patch. Third-party friends. You can't have data for a bit. Remember that?
I do remember.
Yeah.
Good times.
So, I mean, Alex, I definitely supported you on this, but as far as like who was the key proponent on this?
Yeah, this was me. This was my baby. I really do, and I hold to this. I'm gonna sound like an apologist, but I hold that this is
No.
a healthy path for TFT. We can't put the genie back in the bottle at this point,
No.
but I do think that this is a healthier way to experience and have TFT as a strategy game.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we saw was that just that, right? It was like healthier things, people having, dynamic discussions. There wasn't a lot of, nope, I just checked. This number says 4.3. It is what it is, which is really a shame because time and time again we see people winning various tournaments playing augments that are considered garbage. I mean, what did we literally just see? Malala win Vegas with Learn to Spell, like
Yeah.
so it's really a shame, but like you said, we couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. There became this like black market for stats. People were like, "I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna make my own stats." And the only way we could really stop that was get rid of match history, which that is not a trade-off.
Yeah, that was like a bridge too far. Like I didn't even consider that. Like it would have just been taking away way too much information.
Yep.
But on the plus side, I think it's made us really cognizant of what we do include on end of game and match history stuff, like
Yep.
for future stuff, for mechanics or traits or champions, like what we actually want to show there, and make sure that it's either scrapable or not to kind of preserve the experience of TFT.
Yep. Last thing, because I mean, we did launch a set, so there's a lot to talk about here. The augment refresh. We had been playing with some of the same augments from set 6, set 7, and set 8. Celestial Blessing. I swear to God, if I ever saw that augment again.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I miss Celestial Blessing.
What?
Harmless is not Celestial Blessing. You
Oh,
got
stop.
overhealing, being able to
Ugh.
synergize my heal into overhealing. I need that back, please.
Oh.
I'll send you a Robin clip where he took Karmasis and won him the game. You'll be a believer. Don't worry.
But the point was, I remember Sean said this line, and he always says I give him too much credit for this line, but I think it's an important line. He was like, the champs and the traits feel like the commons and uncommons in a magic set, and the augments feel like the rares. And we've been playing with the same rares for 3 sets. And it's terrible. And so when we heard that, it was like, oh crap, let's do this big augment refresh. And now I think we're in the opinion we're like, man, if we can refresh as many augments as we can every set, that'll be ideal. And I think that was a key win for the set. It like made it feel so much fresher because I swear to God, another Celestial Blessing game, I would have died.
It's just,
Yeah.
Cool.
The amount of content we just went through is just a sign of, I was talking about how ambitious we were with set 8. Now with this was set 9. And once we get to set 10, man, there's also a lot of content. So very ambitious.
At this point, now that 9 is out the door, we have not a ton more people working on 10 because a lot of people have to go work on 9.5. But we have a decent number more people starting to focus on 10.
Yep.
But the conversations we're having at this point are we're still trying to get more progress on an old version of the headliner mechanic. Particularly, we're trying to get through like the content that would require. And so we're like, we need people to start like building that out. We potentially need people to start working on like UI and the engineering pieces. So we're trying to figure out what all that looks like. I have a note that at this point we're trying to decide are legends going to stay around in set 10. I think pretty quickly we were like, no, we kind of already planned on let's just do it for 9 and then plan to take it away unless it's like super popular. We were like, all right, no legends, so we don't have to think about that. We had not at this point, I don't think really talked much at all about keeping portals in the game. It probably was in the back of people's heads, I think, but we had an explicit, like in our playtest, we're back to the old opening carousel, for example. So
yeah, and that's the kind of thing that like as soon as I think it was either me or Alex brought that up for the first time, we definitely got a lot of, are you sure you're inflating the game? The complexity's high. Stop it. What are you doing? But again, portals were such a slam dunk. It seemed very obvious at the time. So
at the same, also we went back to playing with first carousel. Everyone was like, "No way, we're bringing this back." There's just like,
oh yeah,
yeah.
Okay, last thing. Again, it's a set launch, so it's a lot here. But Ken, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. You were the set lead for set 9. Do you want to talk a bit about like how tough that was?
Oh yeah, a set 9. For like, I felt like this was June. Okay, so when the set launched, basically that first half of this year didn't exist for me. Like it was, we were growing as a team. There's a lot of newer people on the team, and I was like a newer set lead. And we were so ambitious with the set. We had this much content, so trying to put all of this out in this short amount of time, just it was rough. There was a lot of work for everybody to do, and like not just design, downstream. There's just a bunch of work. A lot of people got had to work a lot to make this happen. The good news is we're moving to 3 sets a year and having a year development timeline. Set 9 just didn't have that, and it's the last set that we're doing this. So it was a rough time. Yeah, just so much to do in so little time. I definitely needed a break after this. So basically after the set shipped, Mort continued doing balance stuff, and I took a couple weeks off.
Which is good. But yeah, definitely, it was a sign of just how the old ways continued to burn people out, right? Like it's how we burned Giovanni out the first time. You were like getting tired, and it's like the old sets model just would never have continued working. We would just burn through people every time. So
yeah, it's mind-blowing what we tried to do in the past. I mean, we were much less ambitious we were still very ambitious for what it's worth, but like just not this amount of content. But like the amount we were able to do with a smaller team is also just still wild to me. But same thing, like it wasn't really healthy for the people, and so now we're in a much healthier like team model.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. 13-13. So we launched with an okay balance, then we made some adjustments, and from what I remember, this is where like balance started to go a little off the rails, mostly in the legend space. Like legends would always just show kind of what became way too good. So
was this Draven? I think this was like a week of Draven or a few days of Draven.
Yeah, this is Draven.
I'm looking July 10th. Yeah.
This is Riot summer break as well, though. There's a 1 week where all of Riot is off.
So, oh god. So I know you didn't mean it, but when you just said Riot summer break, did anybody else just have the PTSD of Rito summer break?
He's back.
What comp was it he was forcing that was just like the worst?
I can't remember.
He was forcing some comp just to like his account name was Rito Summer Break, and he was forcing some overpowered comp that we hadn't balanced properly. I can't remember, but
yeah, I don't know.
Or was
it feels like
something
blur.
Or using Twisted Fit. I don't know, but the point is it was like, yep, this is happening, and we're just like sitting there on summer break going, what can you do about it? So, yeah. Yeah, Legends started to get out of our control. Yeah, Draven. Okay, yeah, Draven got pretty out of control pretty quick. That was one of like, I think this set had a lot of those emergency hot fixes because of stuff like that. That was like the first of them, right?
Yeah, it was so much of this was like legend really. We tried to adjust a lot of things legend related on this first patch, and I think it led to a shakeup of like we moved from one legend to Draven to like Ezreal after.
Right, to Ezreal, then to Orange.
It was just like yeah. So it was just one after another. At some point, it moved to Asol.
Yep.
Yeah, the meta was like always defined by the like dominating legend.
Yeah. We had verticals being good, but almost too good a lot of the time. So.
Oh, we did a Garen nerf here because the Garen Rageblade comp was really good.
Oh god, I forgot that was even a thing.
Yeah, that was a good champion though, Mort.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else on this one? All right. 13-14. By the way, we're more than halfway through the year now, so a lot of buffs on this patch. It's always good when a patch is more buffs than nerfs, but again, patches are still pretty big at this point, which is not ideal. And then if I scroll up a little bit, I sure enough see a mid-patch update again. Soul Brawl shipped, so that was a mode for players to play, which is cool. Akshan nerfs.
This was the Akshan reroll was really, really good.
Yes, it was.
Or even just Akshan as a carry unit.
Yep.
And I think 9.5 is coming along at this time.
Well, yeah. So Sam took over as set lead since you were going back to live, and 9.5 was unfortunately the last of the like, you're gonna have to destroy yourself to ship a mid set because you have 2.5 weeks.
Or 2.5 months.
Yeah, 2.5 months, excuse me, to ship, a set. And they had a good theme. They had good content, right? The Bilgewater stuff was solid. It's just, again, too much time. So
yeah. Oh yeah. To talk on that a little bit, we always knew like going into the set was like these are the origins that we started with. Mid set, we're gonna bring in Bilgewater and Ishtal. Those were like knowns that we were gonna do. We didn't know what champions and things like that yet, but we already had the icons, the portals, all that was already created because those were coming, and we had to try really hard not to mention anything. Every time someone was like, "Where's Bilgewater?" Like,
yep.
maybe
conspicuously missing. What could they be? What could they add at the mid set?
I remember during streams I would get asked that question, and it's like, wow, you went to the lore page and named the two factions not in the set. Good job. You figured it out. Cool.
At this point, I was really trying to get them to print forecast Zoe in Targon to replace Aphelios because we just never had Zoe with her paddle star. That sounds so fun.
I also remember at one point in the 9.5 pitch, they were like, we're going to cut Rise. I'm like, excuse me? You put in all this work and then you're going to cut him at the mid set?
To explain a little bit, it's like we can make 2 more 5-cost spells for Rise, or we can just make a new, we can focus on another 5-cost, but there's also that also meant cutting a ton of Rises.
Yeah, that's a lot of content.
Yeah.
And then the other overall theme here is I'm looking at this patch note and I go to bug fixes, and it's a very long list. This is where, again, I think some of our newness is struggling a bit, and we're like, biting off a little more than we can chew. And so,
for what it's worth, that's also kind of shows that like having more people on the team means we can do more of these bug fixes because there's more people that can help out. Not just live designers, but set designers are like working on some of these bug fixes, augment designers, all of that stuff. So we can hit a lot more. Yeah.
Alex, Witty, anything in this space?
One thing I was going to add, maybe now's a good time to talk about it, is like one of the differences at the end of 9 versus 10. I remember at the end of 9, before we were going live, we were still doing so many like trait swaps and champion swaps and trying to get the roster correct. And then Witty, I remember thinking about 10, where it's just like, our roster's our roster. We can change maybe like 10 champions, but we're pretty much locked in of like, here's the bans, here's what you've told publishing already, because everything was so far up, and we kind of knew coming down the track that like 10 was just going to be pretty much what it was at this point. There were not going to be a lot of things that we could really shift around.
Yeah, I was going to say, at about this time, we did like one final major rework to the structure, but it really even wasn't to the roster itself. It was mostly trying to clean up the like class axis, make things a little more properly simple. But at this point, I was like feeling wildly better around a structure than we had ever had, which is why so much of our focus was on the systems questions, figuring out the set mechanic, again, talking about legends, although this is exactly where we were like, yep, we're definitely not doing legends. There's no way. And then I think this is where, I think at this point we said we definitely need to not have the start of game be the old like APM test. We didn't say it was definitely going to be portals, but we said it's got to be something. I think that's where that project got put on Kent, not as like an immediate problem, but it's like, hey, before set 10 ships, we got to figure out what the like new permanent, they're permanent at least for like the immediate future, like start of the game is going to be, because the default can't be the old version.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that conversation get kicked off of like we didn't really say portals. We were just like, yeah, we're gonna replace first carousel, and then Alex, Mord, and I sat down not too long after and talked about portals, and we're like, we can probably like work. Yeah, it can be portals. We just have to dampen everything. Things like that.
The set 10 trait structure. Well, I remember there were a couple reasons for it, right? One is like Alex said, the publishing, right? It's like we committed all this stuff. It's happening. Like you can't swing the boat now. 2, Witty, I remember just like, these are the skins we have. It's like, even if we wanted to switch, there's nothing to switch to. I think maybe like Disco had a few champs that you could like wiggle in and out, but other than that, it was like nothing.
Yeah.
Even Garen was a stretch.
Yeah, so some of the reasons that the like not KDA, Pentakill, True Damage, Heartsteel, the choices of some of those was things that had large skin lines in case we needed to do things. There's lots of I want to call them disco champions. That's not what they're called.
I can't think of their actual skin line.
What
Space
is it?
Group. Space
Space
Group.
Group. Space Group. There's lots of Space Group champions. There's lots of High Noon champions. And so we had some that were kind of built around the idea of if we have to swap things. But even then, I was like, no. I've done this like many, many times. We're gonna get a structure that we're gonna have the right balance of AP and AD and like frontline and backline. All of that was a lot of the focus.
So where because we're talking about structure, the last question I have before we move on is, when was the meeting that you, Witty, and Alex, the three of us had about classes? Was that around this time?
But this has already happened.
That already happened.
So
Okay.
that was like a couple weeks before this, and that's kind of what mostly had finished. I'll talk a bit about there's one other thing that impacts the structure, which is us finalizing the set mechanic, and that has not happened yet.
Right. I know that comes a little later.
Yep,
But yeah, that was we're changing the classes because they originally had very thematic names, but we were very worried about 10 coming off of 9, which was base skins, being approachable and having all these like new terms that you wouldn't understand. So, do you remember a few of them?
That was one meeting for you. Witty and I talked about naming those things. I don't even remember how many times, Witty. Maybe like seven different meetings about what we were gonna call the things in the game. The bands.
Yeah, and it was two problems, right? There was first just the bands themselves, because
right.
and even
I
to
remember
this even to this day, there are some players that are like, oh, why isn't emo called Big Sad,
Right,
or why
Desperado,
isn't country called
yep.
Desperado? And it's like, it was a close call.
Yeah,
for some
that
players,
one I still think's debatable, but the classes was the one.
but classes, and some of them did stick, right? Like Crowd Diver, Edgelord, even Mosher we had gotten rid of and then added back at the last minute.
Yep.
But we were like, let's go super simple just in case, coming from 9 to 10, folks are overwhelmed, and then make sure only the really like really resonant ones, really intuitive ones are landing.
Do you remember a couple of the non-intuitive ones that we cut?
Oh goodness! Give me like a minute to search, and we can keep talking. Right. I'll give a few more of those.
Okay, but yeah, that was the meeting. I just remember because the classes was the big thing. I remember the origins. I was like, you guys will figure it out. We'll pick the right thing. I'm not too worried. The other thing is sometimes we as a team spend a little too much time on naming things, so we've got to get a little better at that. But we'll figure it out. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next patch while Witty digs that up. 13, 15. Some adjustments here. What's the ooh?
This is the big Piltover rework. Before, you had to sell your dino, the T-Hex, in order to get loot, and players just didn't want to make that trade-off most of the time, and everyone just played with a huge dino. And Piltover was pretty strong too in the previous two patches. This is the one where we reworked it so that you get loot and the dino. So it's a big project for this patch.
Yeah, it was a big project, and man, you and I have talked to death about this internally, but the learnings about both Baron and Piltover are so key and so pivotal moving forward. Because the short version here is that we made these cool things. We made Baron. We made the dinosaur. Because we worked hard and made them, we wanted players to see them. And so we made them accessible. But by making them accessible, they were no longer special.
Yeah.
And by making them not special, no one gave a shit.
Yeah, I want to talk about Baron a little bit, because we were making Baron, and we were making a custom model. Baron was sick. The spells were like monstrous and kills things. But then at 3, we had the 3-6-9 structure originally, and 9 was just so hard to hit because it was an uncraftable emblem. And we were just like, well, what if players just got to play Void games a little more often, got to see Baron a little more often, and we moved it to 8, and we playtested, and we kind of liked it, but it just ended up like Baron was a lot more accessible, like not all the time, but we could see Baron in a lot of lobbies, especially in more casual lobbies, and then Baron just stopped being special. We had to nerf Baron. Baron became less powerful, which is just not what we wanted. And so this is a lesson going forward of like, if we're going to make a really cool thing and we want it to be powerful, we need to make it also rare. And it's okay, because that's going to be a really special moment when someone does see it.
Yep. Like the 8-bit. I love the 8-bit high score. Like when you hit that, it is special right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one, like
oh,
the
go
thing
ahead.
we still need to like tune a little bit is like not swinging too far in the other direction, right? Because like now there's a world of 10 Spellweaver, and it's like who hits that? No, like no one. And then
Yep.
it takes away a little bit that special moment of like players who do want to hit that 10 Spellweaver
Yeah.
or at least attempt.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
structure.
oh, go ahead.
Structurally, this can exactly what you're saying, Alex, just be difficult because you change a breakpoint by one,
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
massive change. Or
Yep.
you move a champion from a 4 cost to a 5 cost during development. Suddenly, something that was kind of easy to hit becomes hard to hit. Actually, right around this time, maybe we're getting ahead by a couple weeks, but we do have the initial conversation around okay, we kind of have this old version of Headliner, but there's enough like work still ahead of us, unknown problems. How do we build it all out? And we talk about okay, what if we did something that was much closer to Chosen? Almost immediately, we're like, great, let's do that. And we'll execute on that, start playtesting it. But one of the immediate impacts was all of the trait breakpoints had to be reconsidered. Luckily, we'd done Chosen before. We knew, and I specifically, and I remember I got in a room with Giovanni, who was the lead on 4, and I had worked on Chosen. I was like, am I missing any memories for what we had to do to the trait structure with Chosen in the game? We immediately also were like, okay, the way that uh buildable or sorry, the way that emblem distribution, especially from the augment system, none of the emblems are going to be available from augments. There's also the time where we made the call around all of the buildable emblems are going to be on the origin axis.
Yep.
So a bunch of stuff suddenly started like taking shape. It was still a lot to figure out. But yeah.
Yeah, so the headliner conversation's a tricky one because we can't talk about what old headliners were. It was a thing,
Yep.
and it had potential, but it just wasn't quite working out in the sense that like we saw where it could go, but in order to get it to like the shippable awesome version of itself was probably more work than hero augments even. It was like a ton of work to get it there. And I remember because I was getting some pressure from like the Peter Plus level of like, we got to make a call on this. And I was like, maybe we give it no. And I remember even having, I think it was you, Alex, we talked to, and it was just like, no, we got to pull the plug on this. And so, the headliner being the version of Chosen was the backup, but it was a solid backup. It fit thematically. Like we always knew it was the backup, but it was time to pull the plug on that backup. And like you said, then that caused a lot of dramatic shifts on like trait structure, breakpoints, et cetera, et cetera. There were some people newer to the team that were like not used to sometimes making these bigger pivots. So it was like, well, why didn't we figure this out in the first place? And it's like, because we tried something a little riskier. That's how we do things here. It's, so definitely not the cleanest mechanic, especially coming off portals. But yeah.
Yeah, although relative to like the history of us needing to shift, because we've talked plenty about, especially set 5, how much we tried different mechanics and needed to pivot things late. This was like, I was like, oh, this feels good relatively. We got a decent amount of time to figure these things out. It's gonna impact the set all the way till the end, but we knew that we were gonna be playtesting and refining for still several more months at this point, which was pretty new. Winding back the clock a little bit, I finally pulled up some of those old names.
Okay.
A lot of the names in isolation are pretty good. Stuff like Pyrotechnic or Bouncer was a good one.
Yep.
Some of them are much rougher. We have Sensation. What is a sensation? It was old Dazzler. Soundproof was an old tank trait. Tempo was an old like AD attack speed trait. So just some stuff that's a little bit more music themed, but more confusing as to what is a tempo champion doing? I don't know.
Yep. Cool. Alex, anything you want to add on headliner before we move on?
No, I was gonna say the only two things I was gonna add is like one, I remember it being a really big pressure relief valve for the team because once we figured out, oh, we're not doing the original headliner, which would have been a lot of work for a lot of disciplines, and when they found out it was then Chosen, they were like, oh, that's easy. I remember distinctly Isaac was like, oh, that's amazing. That'll take me like 10 minutes. And he's our art lead. And I was like, sick, dude. That's amazing.
Yep.
And I think to Witty's point, like it also does show a lot of growth on the team. Like I wasn't there for 5, but on 8, that was a tough mechanic for us to get out the door. We went through a lot of different interesting ideas along the way before hero augments. And us, like as a team, pulling the plug like 6 months ahead of time was actually like a really healthy step forward of like
Yep.
moving forward, picking something different, realizing like we need to cut our losses and move forward and ship something for players.
Yep. All right. Cool. All right. 13-16. Patches are still a little big here.
Wait, I do miss that there's a little bit of a narrative between 13, 14, and 15. Medium in chopping went from gold to silver, and then in 13, 15, disabled.
Yeah,
That's a
medium
great
and
augment.
shopping was an experiment. Did I skip 13-15? No. Okay, 13-16.
No.
Oh, 13. Okay, here's one for you. Kent, we put the anvil back on Raptors.
That was this patch?
That was this patch.
13-16?
Yep.
Yep, that changes should have come before, but yeah.
I mean, you had good intentions, which was, hey, I want to make less decisions for players, but that was definitely one where it was like, no, the anvils are good. The anvils are good.
Yeah, there was just a lot of things in set 9. I mean, with so many decision points in the game with legends, like even before you even launch into the game, I wanted to limit that, but turns out it's not really that necessary. And I think anvil was just not having an anvil was pretty painful when you're stuck with two components that you don't like.
Yep. Demacia adjustments. That was a trait that was a pain to balance. I
think it was around this time when we started deciding how we wanted to treat prismatic traits, because we were working on it for 9.5, and you were working on like reducing the count of prismatic traits and kind of how we were like anything that was harder to reach had an emblem used to be a prismatic, but no, now these are just the super powerful ones. And for 9.5, this is when the work was being done there.
Yep. Yeah, because I was sick of like, I had 4 Freljord. It's prismatic. Why am I not winning? And it's like, bro, you put in +1. Like, relax.
You
it's
hit
not
Freljord
that
hard.
special.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which I think.
Which also plays into set 10 because with headliners, we had to adjust how we wanted those to be hit. And that's why I think some of the breakpoints went from 9 to 10, like KDA as an example. Which was not common. Like back then, we didn't do 10s, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've said this on stream before. I think the biggest mistake with 12 Jade was not making it strong enough. Like 12 Jade was good for the game, but it just wasn't strong enough. I think 10 KDA, 10 Pentakill, 10 Heart Steel, 9 True Damage are all really good right now on live. Alex, you mentioned 10 Spellweaver, different problem, the stupid uncraftables. But yeah. Otherwise, small changes, augment, just typical balance of us trying to get it in the right spot, chasing our tails with legends a bit here.
Also, just showing how much perception matters. We renamed Yordle portals to Flushing Arena, and we
God.
track like portal pick rates across patch to patch. And I think Yordle portals was probably like top 2/3 ish, like semi-popular, not like Jace's Workshop. We renamed it to Flushing Arena, and it dropped down to like bottom tier. Nothing changed about the portal other than moving it to Noxus and changing the name.
Yeah, because we were just trying to get Noxus Rise to actually be freaking played ever.
Because that was a great rise.
Yeah.
But it also goes to show, like, it's pretty important when we name things. Like, I mean, part of it's the color red. It's also like,
I mean, Flushing Arena, like
the name.
That's something.
Don't spend too much time on naming, but spend a little bit of time.
Yeah.
This is the patch we had some region portals come out too. I mean, we did do the whole like Petrosite Forest change last patch. This
I was gonna say Hall of 9. Hall of 9 was great.
The good one. Yeah.
That's coming back in 14.1, right?
It is coming back in the new year. It's going to be exciting. The Chaos Portal, where you never know what you'll get. It could be a bunch of removers, or you can get a Tactician's Crown. Who knows?
Yep. All right, 13-17. So again, we're getting ready for mid-set, so it's slowing down a bit here.
It's the last patch right before the mid-set.
Yep, nothing too crazy. I see a Malzahar buff, so pretty happy with that.
This is when Mort gets full control. You can tell in the patch notes. I was a Malzahar buff.
That is not true, though.
Patch.
I had actually very little control at this point. I was mostly hands off here.
There was probably a DM somewhere about like, can we please make Malzahar playable? No, that's not true, actually.
I mean, I've probably said that a few times, but and then you're like, no, he's good. He's good.
He was weak at the time, yeah, and so he needed the buff. So
now,
buff to Cassante though.
Just for behind the scenes before we hit the mid set, one thing here, correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point we're playtesting set 10 quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
And my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection is it was bad. It was really rough and really bad.
Yeah, so we're at a stage. Let's see, what month are we in at this point?
This is August.
August, yeah.
Yeah. We're in August, so we have just set up Chosen. And by Chosen, I mean actual Chosen from set 4 with no changes.
Yep.
So we have some plans as to how to improve it, but that's what we're playtesting. We also, I think other than the swap to... actually, no. We've already made the swap from... PBJ is now an econ trait, and country is a summon trait, which is kind of our last like content swap.
But they were not done. They were like conceptually there.
Yes. So everything we have the conceptual pieces for, very few things are done though.
Right.
And so there's like tons of bugs, tons of polish, tons of like tool tips that are way too long relative to what the mechanic does. So it's like, cool, we got all these pieces in place, but none of the set is done. So now we're starting to get serious. Okay, how do we finish this thing?
Yeah, well, especially, I mean, you mentioned like PBJ slash Heartsteel being the econ thing, but like it was bad, right? Like it was just like complicated, and like a lot of the stuff in the set was very complicated, overdone, and it was just in a really rough state. So like we had all this time, and like you said, we had all the pieces, but all the pieces were really rough. So
yeah, and like there's always like a lot of squinting that's necessary like early on in playtest, but I remember these playtests were a slog to get through. Like they were tough. Like we were having a hard time finding the fun.
Yeah, we haven't had artists working on the set at this point. Everyone is totally focused on 9.5. I think ended up being a little bit larger than we expected. So it's all designer art. I don't think anyone from like a balance perspective is like real, or anyone like from the live team is really done. So like every individual piece of the set, it's very easy to come into a playtest at this point and be like everything is wrong, because in a lot of ways it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think at the time, I think it was around this time we had Tim join onto 10 and start to help out with balance around this time. I don't know I don't remember the exact timeline, but around this time, yeah.
Balance was only going to get it so far, right? It was like using Heartsteel as the example. It's like you could balance what it was, but it was still a complicated mess of whatever. Balance wasn't the sole issue. So there was a lot of work to do of like finalizing the set and getting it to a good spot at this point. So I know Alex and I were very nervous at this point, basically.
Oh yeah, I was stressed. I was like, we have got to fix set 10 ASAP.
All right, so we'll come back to that, but that's where we're at right now with set 10. Oh, go ahead,
9.5 is on PBE at this point.
Yep.
I think we're starting to see some RFC builds, some people cook up some weird builds, things like that. But I think there was still some like rough things to work out. Like we were thinking about how, GP, it was not very good. We had to come up with a solve for that. Bilge Water was really good, but it wasn't being played as much as it should. I guess people weren't playing it as much. And so this is also like, when 9.5 comes out, Bilge Water is obviously really, really strong. But
well, a lot of it was coming in late, right? Like, for example, the Nyla stuff, Nyla didn't even work with RFC till like right near the second week of PBE.
Yeah, it was like right before we cut the branch for the set. Nyla got some changes to like function well with RFC. But also just people weren't really playing Bilge Water. Like we saw it once in a while, people were like, this is really strong, but it's like, how strong?
Yeah.
PBE data is not very reliable. We couldn't go off of that. So.
All right. So we move on to 13-18, mid-set launches. Silco's back, Bilgewater's back. We got some stuff going on. And right away, Bilgewater kind of broken, kind of nutty. Already had to B-patch it. Pretty large B-patch right off the bat. Yeah. I mean, definitely one of those like nerfs that even make you nervous, Ken, where it's like, what are we doing? We're gutting this thing.
Yeah, this was a rough time. I mean, this mid set was really rough because like we had a short development timeline to like make the patch. I think make the set. I think we had really good core designs. Like some of the units were really fun. A lot of the traits were really unique. Bilgewater was something we've never done with pirates. It wasn't printing gold. It was something different. But it was also like we were talking about A5 and how it was like 6 patches. This is 4 patches of this, and we needed to stabilize things in 2 patches for Worlds or for championships. It was just everything was moving so fast, and kind of we were also like really focused on 10, as you guys were talking about how like you were both getting really involved in 10. 9.5 was
it was rough.
Yeah, it was rough. It was a rough time for us.
Yeah, new people on the balance side of things. We did get some positives. Shred and Sunder went from 40, 50, 70 to 20, 30, 50. That I think was a very healthy change. So, yeah.
Oh, we also got all the item
The
reworks.
new items, yep. Tim's item project, yep.
Pretty positive especially for melee bruisers, getting like Crown Guard, Sterix.
I'm super happy with the concept of like support items and artifact items. And I think the next step is we just need to add a bunch of cool new artifacts and ways to get them. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say something, but I'll save it. But TLDR, I think this has set us up for the future to do a lot of cool stuff. So pretty happy with this.
Yeah, the item project was a big one for us, and I think it's done a lot of good, for sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, the artifact space in particular, I'm really excited about. Like, I want to see that pool expand by like 30. Like, I want to see them get crazy.
Yep. People above my level by a lot are also saying the same thing. So I had Andre mention to me, he's like, "Can you make this artifact, please?" So
the great thing about artifacts too is like you can cook. Like we can have some really exciting effects in there because they don't have to like you can't build them every game, so they don't have to respect some of the like rules about players can just force this. It's like you can really have some exciting outputs. So
well, I mean, I think one of the criticisms of the item system has that it's become a homogenous system, right? It's all just balls of stats, and they miss the really special stuff, right? And I think the answer is you're right. We put the special stuff in the artifact system, and we bring it back, right? Like, if you want to tell me Hush comes back, maybe not Hush in particular, but some of those items that we've cut over time that were just too narrow, and put them in the artifacts, I'm like, okay, that makes sense because you can opt into it then, and you're not stuck with it from these really weird angles. We don't have to balance around it existing,
You meant Cursed Blade, right? The shrink item instead, right?
Yeah, definitely Cursed Blade.
Yeah,
and bring back on hit on Runons. Sick.
Okay,
all
that
right,
one
ship it.
Witty knows that one is doable. That one
I mean, if an artifact,
discussion for a different time.
I think the only player that was super sad about all this was Leduc because he couldn't build 6 Zephyrs anymore. So,
his 6 Zephyr techs were so funny. Blue buff Cassante.
They were really funny. They were really funny.
It's so good.
Yep.
One of the big positives I think of expanding our artifact pool, I think right now in set 10 we've gotten to the point where there's too many gold generation ones out of the as a percentage of the total pool. So by expanding artifact pool, we can reduce that a bit, and it'll be helpful.
Yep.
But it doesn't just feel like it's half shimmer scale items.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't know if shimmer scale items should exist in there. Like, I don't know if gold generation is like a fun space. I mean, I guess it is to a degree, but like, I would much rather have like my stupid pitch where you can put on like a Thieves Glove item and then just stars up your champion with stats. Like, you just get an instant star up. Like, that's way more fun than Mogul's Mail.
Yeah, we should be more picky about our gold generation items probably. So
TLDR, you heard it here from our product lead. Artifacts coming soon.
True. I'm very excited about this.
All right, cool. So now with mid set out the door, we also did something behind the scenes that was pretty drastic, because at this point what was going on was we had a set 10 pod, a set 11 pod, and a 9.5/12 pod, right? And what we were finding was with these pods, the strengths and weaknesses were not evenly distributed but amongst the designers. We had one pod that had like people that were really, really good at X, but like all 4 of our people that were really, really good at X. And then another pod would just be like a bunch of people who were good at X but not good at Y. And we had to so we actually shuffled our pods right around this time. And I think that was a big proponent in helping 10 get to a good spot, because 10 was missing, especially on the implementation side, I would say. So
yeah, I remember at this point I have I should look at how many pages it is. It's got to be like a 150-page document or something of like, here's what we still need to do. Like, we knew exactly what we needed to do to finish the set. We just needed to kind of get through it. And it was, some of them were design tasks. A lot of them were art tasks. We're getting I'm getting nervous about the music system at this point, because we know that it's a little bit buggy. A lot of it is still temporary music as well. We don't, literally know what it's going to sound like. Some of the pieces of art still haven't landed. A lot of the splash arts that we need for the new champions aren't done. So it's like, all right, we know all these things that we just need to do to finish the set. Let's get them all done.
Yep. Yeah. So, and then one more to give credit to is that Giovanni, normally when the set pod finishes, right, like the 9-5 pod finished, Sam went on his vacation. Well deserved. He earned it. Giovanni, instead of taking his vacation, went, how can I help on 10? Jumped over to 10 and also pulled a lot of muscle to help 10 out. So just a lot of people coming together to give 10 that support it needed. So, all right, let's continue on. I think we're starting to hit some nightmare zones here.
Is it 13-19 now?
It is
It's
13-19.
All right. This is not the nightmare zone exactly yet, but I think it's the beginning of a lesson that we've learned, which is this is when we reworked Rek'Sai and we started thinking about how we're going to rework things like Fiora, how we deciding whether or not to tackle the multicaster problem and things like that. This is only the first patch of
yeah, you're right. This isn't it yet, because all I read is damage went down. So yeah, you're right. We're not here yet.
Yeah, but it's only the first patch. But yeah, we already reworked Rek'Sai. It's kind of like these are things that we wish we could have done before we shipped the set of like, let's do this work, test it out, and like not have players have to experience a unit and then that unit changes or a trait changes, but also so that we don't have to kind of rebalance everything around that, because every time we change something, we have to sim it a lot and hope that the balance kind of gets there, because it's a lot of things to change at a time. So this the beginning of this lesson to us, basically, of we need to get way ahead and try not to ship these things. And of course, this was a mid-set. We already talked about how rough this is, so this wasn't really a possibility for 9-5, but going forward.
Yeah, but yeah, we had the Fiora untargetability, we had the Rek'Sai, and the Rek'Sai one did not really land. Like, she still just kind of wasn't a champion afterwards. I think this is when we over-nerfed Silco. Silco kind of became not a champ, which was a shame because he was our special TFT champ, and he just didn't exist after this patch, basically. So...
yeah, I think he got like a functionality change, or maybe that was right before we shipped.
I think it was right before we shipped.
But he had better targeting, but then we also had to compensate, nerfed it, I think, and it became not as good.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we never saw Silco.
Something like that.
So...
we also attempted a Neela change so that we didn't have to. It was the one where like she would be more consistent without RFC. So we were like, if we could, this is a Giovanni pitch. And I thought it was a great attempt, but basically like if she could hit more things without RFC, she doesn't need RFC as badly. But turns out when you have 3 RFCs sitting in the back line, like it's just so good.
Yep.
So didn't matter.
Okay. So yeah, at this point, Kent, you and the live team are handling this stuff, and it's not going the best it's ever gone. And I know I'm deep in with Witty in 10 World.
Yeah, part of the good news at this point is because I'm seeing a lot of these like post-ship reworks that are happening on 9.5, some of the stuff that happened on 9, and in general has happened basically since all of TFT of, we don't have quite enough time to like both finish and then thoroughly play test everything to see what patterns, like how they play out, not just on the first like 3 to 5 games, but like 20, 30, 40, 50 games in. And so we're starting to, like, as we have this giant list of things we need to finish, we're also identifying, okay, even with our current plans, what can we do to kind of do the types of reworks that we would do on live that we still can do. One of the big limiting factors in set design is always like art implications, right? Like even if you have a great idea, if you don't have the like art or audio or whatever to support it, it's not going to come out well. But there's lots of tweaks that we can do, things, how they scale, whether it's percent healing or flat healing. And so we're having more of those like really nitty gritty conversations. And that's also significantly increasing the quality of the set at the same time that all the other just like feels good stuff is starting to land. And I think very quickly playing the set goes from like, oh, this is nothing is right to like, oh, we are playing like this set is looking very good.
Yeah, I know I was getting a lot of pressure, especially with Vegas coming up, that like 10 needs to be great. And so this is when I started to like personally crank it up to 11 a lot. I know I helped with like the Heartsteel stuff and just like a lot of trying to really get it in the right spot, which was like the next 2 months of my time as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, same. I feel like
Yeah.
I was not on 9-5 at all at this point. I think all three of us probably had separate lists and we were just tackling them all or pointing people in the direction that we needed to have them. And I think, maybe part of that is why 9.5 felt a little bit rough in spots because there just weren't as many eyes on it and like really being thoughtful with like a fine-tooth comb of like what we're doing, why we're doing it, that kind of stuff.
Yep. All right, should we move on?
Oh, 1320.
All right.
Yay.
1320 reworked multicaster.
Yeah. This is this was a rough patch. So usually we ship out big reworks like this by the second patch. We probably shouldn't have done it for 9.5 because it was only a 4-patch set and championships was the following patch. So we just didn't have that much time to like take this risk. We were also planning to do an Ishtal change, which like Ishtal never landed well and people never played the 3-piece. And like once in a while, the niche case would play 4-piece. And we were going to do a pretty big change. Mort, you remember this, right?
Mm-hmm.
To Ishtal, but we made the right call to like not do that and focus on multicaster.
Do you remember what the Ishtal change was?
Yeah, the Ishtal change was to give the bonus out at 3.
Right.
Instead of 4, and then we would do something different at 4. And well, there was a big risk of like, well, then nobody will play 4 for the second hex or anything like that because you want to buff up one unit.
Right, it was
anyways.
literally switch 3 and 4. So
yeah, with 4 maybe getting a bigger bonus, but like the big incentive is still 3, and so there was a risk there of not doing
it. A big risk,
if we did that. Yeah,
this was definitely one of the lower points in TFT. But with any low point, right? Shadow items, there's learnings, right? I think a lot of people take away learnings, and the thing I've always said is it's fine to make a mistake as long as you learn from it, and we definitely learned, right? But man, I will always have that memory of my 10 Bilgewater comp in Rumble getting wrecked by a basic multicaster comp.
Yeah.
And that was after because that was the other thing was the B patch, right? The B patch that was supposed to fix it, that didn't. And it also emphasized that like when we B patch something, player expectation is that it is no longer an issue, which means we have to swing harder and then course correct and binary search it back to reality, not go light and then go, wait, why am I still losing to this thing they B patch? So definitely a rough one.
For sure. We like it, there's a lot of learnings here internally. We've talked about this a lot, but basically, there were some things in the sims and other parts of the process that just weren't done as well as they could have. And so the B patch didn't address all the problems. The positive of the B patch, we did disable scope to weapons. So that helped. Yes. Oh man, that augment when you hit 1 RFC plus scoped weapons on Neela or double Mordekaiser backline with scoped weapons. Oh my god.
Now, not to put all the things on you, but we also made another silly mistake in this patch, which was we shipped the for fun portals, which were great. These were some pretty cool portals. And then we didn't put the tag on the normals mode at first. Remember this, Alex?
Oh, I sure do.
Did we actually see the like impact once we finally re-enabled it?
Yeah, there was a jolt up after we properly named the queue.
Yeah,
we redeployed for it, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I made sure that you all redeployed.
So yeah, like I said, players like to joke that like we sacked 9 for 10 a little. They're not entirely wrong. There was a little bit of a sacking 9 for 10 a little here, but. Because the other thing is, like you called out, Kent, is that normally these were 3 months, but 9.5 was only, 2.5 months?
Yeah.
So, to get our schedule back on track.
Yeah. And we kind of had, like, to an extent, quote unquote given up on Legends at this point because we knew we were pulling it out. We don't need to like. There's only 2 weeks left, or like 2 patches left. There's no point trying to get everything into perfect balance. We accept the way things are and get things as close as possible to like, so players can enjoy what exists rather than trying to perfect everything and taking risks that might shake up things even further. So
yeah.
And as we're running into some of these issues, we're very quickly trying to convert them into set 10. So we're like, okay, we're not gonna have scoped weapons in 10. We also are like, and we're gonna remove RFC. So we're doing the red buff rework. We're getting rid of Night Harvester because we want one more tank item. You know, we're like, oh, the 9.5 item rework was good, but there's like a few more details that are off. I don't know that you've finished the like new portals for 10 yet at this point, Kent, because you're also working on that as a project.
Yeah. That was like, I think we were starting on getting those like paper locked, but not implemented yet. But a lot of, it was the core we can pull over from 9.5, which helps save a lot of time. But I remember me and Alex had some conversations about how we should, how many we should make. Should we save some of the complex ones for later? That kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that project was going on.
And the one other thing we're doing, I think, a little bit differently historically that I think is worth calling out here is we have a larger game analysis team than we've ever had before. And what that meant is we had way more days where there was a lot of playtesting that was happening. So designers are normally playtesting once, maybe twice a day, then making changes. But instead, we're having like lobbies, like not every day, but there are some days where there's like 4, 5, 6. I think there was one Friday where we played like 7 or 8 games just because we were having a lot of fun and like getting really deep into it. And these are playtests where literally in between them we're like, oh, there's a new bug. Okay, we fixed it. Oh, this balance is off. Okay, we're changing it. Like we're getting into what I really like, and some of the stuff we used to do when we kind of had slightly different structure of the team. This like super iterative daily balance, daily iteration. So the quality, we're already, I think at this point actually, we're deep enough that we're like, okay, cool. We're feeling pretty good about most things. I think augments are the other thing.
Augments were coming in hot. Like that was the last thing. But this is where the set was finally like, wait, we're starting to have fun. It was a big turnaround, right? And it's like, I think it was basically the 13-18 to 13-21 window where it went from like not very fun to, oh, okay, there's a lot here. This is good. And we started to see it all come together. So a lot of reworks, a lot of stuff like that. But yeah. Fluffed of Poro, by the way. That's another cool little legend. So, all right. We got 4 more to go here. 13-21.
Before we leave, though, now we can finally call out Team Planner reminders. 13-20.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's when we shipped.
So that's when Team Planner really took off. And my most asked question on stream instantly became, can you add X to Team Planner? Because now players love Team Planner and they want more features. And they want more features because Team Planner is great. I use it now to make sure I don't stupidly miss something when I'm rolling down. It's like, oh, I'm playing KDA and I need an Evelyn and I'm level 7. Mark Evelyn real quick. So, love it. All right, 13-21. Trying to get ready for Worlds. At least Multicaster wasn't dominant.
Yep. Oh, I think this was the time. Yeah, really small patch. Smaller patch because we were trying to get ready for championships. We're also kind of starting to focus on Worlds. I mean, 10 more. But more, I think was this around the time when we started testing more in depth, like bag changes, the system leveling changes, that kind of things for 10. That's why Witty was saying we play tested a lot too, because we really needed to validate those things and make sure those system changes were landing the way we wanted them to.
Yeah, so this is where I got a little mad scientist-y, and Alex can correct my revisionist history of how insane I get sometimes. But the first one was pretty easy, which was we're adding level 10. It's set 10, we're adding level 10. This was specifically to solve the problem of like there needed to be like this mid to late game, because like the problem was level 9 was too common, but so I wanted level 9 to be later, but I wanted level 8 to still be very common so that people could play with like 4 cost headliners, because we didn't want to like push back 8 and like it become a reroll meta. So I needed this like in between state. So basically it was like make 8 easier to get to, 9 easier to get to, 10 harder to get to, and like you'd had to go 10. And so that went really well, I think. I mean, minor adjustments here and there on percentages, but overall, I think that was a success. The much more controversial one was the bag changes. And that one was about trying to, not have 4 people play the same overpowered comp every game. And that one still, to this day, I don't know that we fully grasp exactly what that's done to the game quite yet.
Put things into perspective, it might have been a little bit before 1321 that we started doing this, but basically this is a month before set 10 ships and like 2 weeks before PBE. So it actually might have been like maybe a week before, but they came in hot. Mort does these mad scientist things, and then we just, we have gaming on Steam, we have live, and we just kind of beat it up and make sure it feels good. But yeah, it is pretty close to set 10 launching around this point.
Anything to add to that, Alex?
No, I think the two big things are like, one, we're still talking about it a lot internally. Like, what is the future state of bag changes at all? Like, I think that's still like a very open, like more philosophical question that you and I need to answer. But I think the other one, Witty, you may want to talk on this too. I think one of the other reasons that the leveling changes landed so well was the work that Witty did around champion sizing, actually. Like, helped a ton with the like visuals on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was this moment where I had been like playtesting 10 for so long. Had then like played a few more games of 9, and then playtested an old set. We've talked a little bit about set revival. I playtested an old set. It was like, whoa. Our champions are huge. Well, what has happened? They're obscuring each other. It's really hard to see. So we did this big old pass and put a lot of, this is another one of those things, kind of like naming, where you don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but if you spend the right amount of time on it, it feels really good. So we actually shrunk champions relative to set 9, like a pretty sizable amount, because we were like, we too much going on. There's too much clutter. And combat clarity is so important in TFT. So we're trying to like refine those elements.
Yep. Last thing I'll cover on this patch, Worlds patch, another trip to Spain. I think obviously ignoring the like legends and all the Orns, or not Orns. Was it Orn? Tome of not Orn. I can't think of Earth. Thank you. All the Earths, all the Tome of Traits.
Yep.
Honestly, other than that, it was about as good of a Worlds as we could have hoped for. And at least it was nice to see the best player win. Title smashed everything. So, it is what it is. But, definitely won't go down as like the best meta of all time or anything like that. But, yeah.
Yeah, the power of prismatic traits in this set, it kind of reminded me of like back in set 5 when there's a lot of high verticals that were really powerful. And I mean, it was the existence and accessibility of Tome of Traits that kind of caused this. But
like the games where people had 3 tomes.
Yeah. But it was a good lesson for us about like how we should limit things for set in future sets. And set 10, we made sure that they were hard to hit. There were no +1 augments anymore. There were like fewer ways to access spatulas, like all these, like no more augments, like granted, spatulas and things like that. So like a lot of ways for that we wanted to make it less common, but keep it very powerful.
Yep.
I actually don't think it was like a prismatic power level issue. It was an accessibility issue. Like it was just way too easy to hit those vertical boards. And we had the strength so high. And like I think you can see it with like 10 now. Like when you hit KDA, it's like very special, and you get that strength. It's like hitting that moment that we were hoping for with 9.5.
Yep.
Before we move on, just one quick thing, touch on what Witty was talking about champion sizing. One of the things that I think players don't know what we do, but we do adjust champions to be the right size, and we adjust their health bars to look correct, and we adjust their like click boxes, like little things that we do. Obviously don't spend too much time on it, but we got to make it look good and feel good. So it is a thing we do.
All manually. Yep.
Yeah.
1322. This is the for fun patch. Buffed a lot of things. So I'll be my own worst critic here, because this was a Mort special. Everyone was busy on 10. I just threw out a bunch of buffs. It didn't get much scrutiny because everyone was playing 10 on PBE, but this was not a good patch. Overbuffed Silco especially. It was a very Silco heavy meta. But again, no one cared, so it was fine. To complement this patch, Chunk's Treasure came out. Again, players loved it. I think Chonk's Treasure was a great way to end the set. People got to like play some things they wanted. It was a nice wind down and like, cool, now I'm done with set 9, ready for set 10. So Chonk's Treasure I think was great here. So yeah. Overtime buff. This was Keaton's first big project. This I think was a very healthy change. I've played with it a bunch now. It ramps up a little fast, right around like 7 seconds. It's like, oh, you just have no healing, like whatever, and you just get destroyed. But like, it's much better than it was. So I do like this a lot.
For sure. I think Keaton did a really good job with this. I think one of the things that I wish we could have done is, because it ramps up instead of a sudden change, the visuals need to ramp up and not have it be a sudden change, because it's kind of like, oh shit, wait, nothing's happening yet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. We were also kind of relatedly, especially on PBE, for one of the first times we were being not only super obsessive about balance and bug fixing, but very obsessive about fight pacing.
Yep.
It feels very good in TFT if fights aren't too short, if they aren't too long. And so we were going crazy as all of us were playing or watching PBE games, posting as many clips and videos and like hyper analyzing things.
Talk about the steak.
Yeah, so again, I was kind of killing myself to make sure set 10 was as good as possible. So what I told the team in our live balance channel was, post every clip you find of a fight faster than 16 seconds or longer than 27 seconds, and whoever posts the most clips, I will take out to steak dinner. I was like, I need every clip. I need to understand every fight, what is going on. And it worked. We got a lot of clips, and it was like, okay, what's going on this fight? Oh, wow, this champ's way too tanky. And like, I don't think I've ever tried so hard at balancing TFT as I did that week. Like, oh my God. So, and did it pay off? I mean, the first patch wasn't perfect, but I don't know. I look at our Vegas meta and I'm like, I think it was worth it. So.
Also, fight pacing was really good, and Witty, you were the one who posted. You posted a ton of videos, didn't you?
Witty and Giovanni were the two winners. So
yeah, some of you may have seen me and Giovanni in various like streamer lobbies or whatever at like 2-3 in the morning. Like, and a lot of what we were doing was we were just like recording those games, taking clips, posting them, and it was helping in other fronts too, right? Like just that amount of like attention to detail. We were still catching like really like minor like, oh, this augment plus this item plus this champion causes this very specific bug, or like little like, I think at one point we were like, oh, the like pace of Caitlyn's like firing of her gun feels wrong, so we're doing like really, really tiny changes just to make the set feel as good as possible, because again, we often try to do that stuff on live, but that first patch feeling good is just so much more important than getting it right like a few patches in.
Yep. Last thing on 9 before I close 9 and move on to 10. I added 3 Bruiser because it was a hilarious meme, and and it's fun, and I love that we work at a place where we can just do that sometimes, and it's okay.
Yeah. So Mort's for fun patch special. Yep. I want to touch on PBE bug fixing. There was so much bug fixing going on every day from designers like across the board, and it's like, just again on like ambition, we're trying some really wild things, like KDA changes the skin of your unit, basically changing to a new unit. So that's kind of how it works. And then there's like allow reviving a summon. There's like all these like new mechanics that are EDM. It's like things that can cause a lot of bugs that players are just beating up. They're putting so many playing so many games and like discovering these bugs, and we're just have to fix. And every time we fix it, there's like, well, someone discovered something else, and then we have to fix it again. And so there's a ton of bug fixing going on during this time.
Yep. Okay, so then we launch set 10, which props, by the way, to the publishing team, that cinematic. The dev drop. Best dev drop we've ever done. What a good dev drop. Turns out that stuff all worked. A good set combined with good publishing. We can't comment on numbers, but TLDR, we were happy with the results of set 10. Yay. That's all we can say. But yeah, so then it was like, okay, the set's out there. And first patch, even if the balance isn't actually good, we always get a pass because like nobody knows what the hell they're doing. So it's like the balance was fine. It was good. It wasn't amazing. Very fast 9 became, I mean, like it shifted every day, right? Like for a while, I forget what it was, but it was like it was something, then it was something, then it was fast 9. So it was like country early on. Country reroll started off strong, then it was something else, then it was fast 9, but whatever.
Annie was really powerful.
Annie, yep.
Annie, Katarina, and then Katarina just disappeared.
Yep.
Except like really niche. Yeah.
Yep. So we were seeing that meta shift, which was healthy, but the big thing on the horizon was, okay, Vegas, right? Like we had invested so much in Vegas, and I think everyone was nervous from the past where it was like you can launch with a good patch and then you kind of screw it up, right? So it was like, what do we do? And so, yeah, we launched set 10. Everything's good. We didn't do any B patches other than a bug fix for KDA boards because that was annoying. I think, what was it? There was one thing we debate. Oh, Jazz. If we were going to B patch anything, we could have debatably B patched Jazz. I think that was the one thing. But otherwise, set launched, went well, things were good. And so that leads us to the final patch, 13.24. And this was, again, we had to get it right, so we did the best we could, focused mostly on buffs, only a few nerfs. I think Ziggs got a little over nerfed. But honestly, other than that, it seemed okay. Jazz maybe a little over nerfed, but Jazz also doesn't have great levers. Like the difference between 3 and 4% is massive. So,
yeah. There's also the strategy for Vegas, right? Where like the 1324 itself is a little smaller after Vegas. Like right now, it's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I'd actually messaged Alex beforehand. I was like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make what I would do as a normal patch here, and then I'm going to break it up into the musts and can waits, and all the can waits will be after Vegas. And I think that strategy worked out pretty well.
It's because players are flying into Vegas around like Thursday, Friday. The patch comes out on Wednesday, so like if we just change a bunch of things, they're going in with zero practice, and it really sucks for them. And it also is risky for the tournament. And so this kind of smaller strategy worked out really well.
All right.
Yeah, I remember overall just having a bit of a different mentality around this because in a lot of ways, once a set launches, there's at least a good amount of stress reduction, but there's just going to be so much focus on Vegas, and we want to get the balance as good as possible, but we also don't want there to be any major bugs, and so we were kind of changing things on PBE, doing very late bug fixes that we may have saved for the first patch otherwise, just so that we would have some runway, because as software development goes, sometimes fixing a bug causes a new bug. So we were like, we want to fix everything, but we also want to not touch the game as much as possible. Or even if you're not going to cause a new bug, you bug fix something that's actually a big buff or a big nerf, then the whole balance of the thing gets thrown up in the air. So we're like, how do we choose what we're going to change or fix with the bar being very high, because we really don't want to change anything if possible.
Yep. All right, so then that leads us to Vegas. And so we could talk for hours about Vegas, I'm sure. We're not going to. So instead, I'm just going to call on each of you to give me like your 3-minute spiel on how Vegas went for you, starting with Witty.
Yeah, Vegas was awesome. It was very wild. Actually, one of the things that I regretted but then was able to kind of resolve was those first couple days I barely like really watched any full games. Like I was watching because I wasn't watching the main broadcast. I was spending a lot of time like walking around on the floor, looking at the different lobbies, seeing how is any lobby like figuring something out that some other people who's eliminated, meeting people I haven't met in 4 or 5 years or ever in person. And so that was like very chaotic. And then the final day, I'll let y'all talk about that more, but that was incredible. One of the, I think, better displays of how the like checkmate format can really create some awesome drama. And I will say I've watched a lot of esports of a lot of different games, including League. That was one of the most hype esports moments I have ever been a part of. So it was, I guess I should finish it by saying I always thought, many years ago that TFT was a game that could operate at that scale and have that kind of open bracket format. And that event was such a strong expression of what TFT can look like from a competitive perspective.
Nice. All right, Kent.
Yeah. it was amazing seeing, the venue, seeing everyone there in person, meeting a bunch of players who just wanted to talk about TFT and, love TFT. But I remember on the second day, I like was sitting there and watching the screen and just something happened and everyone cheered. And I just like felt kind of emotional because it was like, this is how far TFT has come. This is kind of like amazing to see like this many people just watching this large scale event. I never thought this could happen for, TFT. And then also like on the second day, I was standing there when all the lab members with their lab jackets were watching Humbug, the last member left, and he makes it in top 4, which is all he needed to make it to the last day. And they just went wild. And he was still in the game, but he just like sat back with a sigh of relief. And I was just like seeing all this in person is like something you can't get on a screen. And so being able to be at a LAN and watch this was incredible. And so, and Woody already talked about day 3, but yeah, just all of this, it was just the most amazing weekend. And I can't wait for more of it.
Nice. Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I think I used the word surreal like 100 times over the weekend, but it really was just like the most surreal weekend overall. Like, I mean, I don't know if players know how much like we all care about TFT and like talk about TFT and think about TFT and watch TFT and play TFT, but like getting to see them like enjoy the thing that I love so much and literally like put so much of my energy into it, like honestly, some nights I'm like, man, is it worth it? Like, should I really be spending this much time? But then you go to Vegas, it's like, man, these players like love TFT. Like they are here supporting, cheering, going crazy. And you're like, oh, it's worth like without a shadow of a doubt, it is so worth all of the like energy and love that we pour into the game. So yeah, it was insane. And getting to like see the folks that I met like last year at Summit again, like Becca and Appies and Dan and all of those folks, like it was really fun. And then meeting all the players and the casters, it was a blast. And getting like the dev team, like the panels that we did, like getting like faces that players don't really know and like getting to hear about like the art and the music and all the other cool stuff was really hype.
Yeah, I think the panels will go live at some point, so people who weren't there will get to see them at some point. So that'll be cool. I think it's funny, by the way, you mentioned, like, I don't know how much players know we talk about TFT as we sit here past the 2-hour mark in this video.
Okay, fair. All right, you're
on our
right. You're right.
Sunday on our vacation. So, which I love. Yeah, no, Vegas was definitely surreal. It was a blur. I definitely volunteered for a little too much, but it was a great thing. Casting and walking around, and the dev panels were great, and a lot of players just really excited me. I felt bad. There were some times where it's just like, I'm just trying to get to dinner. And people were like, can I take a photo? And I'm like, I'm with Andre and Peter. And it's like, I can't make my bosses and boss's boss wait. So I'm sorry. I have to say no right now.
Oh wait, I have to tell the story. I was
Okay.
standing there with a Sharpie and just talking to I think Kent or Roger or someone, and Mort's like signing autographs, and someone walks over to me and is like, "Hey, can I borrow your Sharpie?" Takes it and then asks Mort for an autograph. That was the highlight.
Oh, you're killing me.
So funny.
But yeah, it was definitely a crazy weekend. It was awesome to see. I got a lab coat that was autographed by the lab. That was pretty amazing. But to Witty's point, I'll close on this, is that day 3 was some of the best TFT, maybe like some esports. Game 4, I threw out my voice, and then I had to cast 2 more games. I'm like scratching through my voice because game 4 with that Yone survived. I was screaming, holy cow. And then game 5, Humbug with the Teemo 1 HP. Everyone was rooting for him for game 6. It was such a crazy, like, games 4, 5, and 6. I don't know that we'll top that in TFT for a while.
Just seeing that Teemo finisher pop up over and over and over was so hype.
So I don't know if you know, by the way, but Humbug did not have that Teemo on his main account. And someone reached out asking me, so I passed it on to our team, and we gave him that Teemo for his account. So he's got that now. It's now his. So it's pretty cool.
Amazing.
But yeah, so like, I don't know, it was definitely great, and it made all the work that we all did on 10 worth it. So it was great. So all right, so to almost wrap this up here, then we ship the B patch /1325 / whatever you want to call it. Meta's generally okay. There's a lot of things that work. There are things that don't. I've already got a list of things that's like, here's what we got a B patch and stuff like that. So, and then on the behind the scenes side, a lot of the 10 crew got their vacations or are about to take their vacations if they haven't already. And then 11 is like deep in playtesting land. Kent, I know you've been helping in the 11 land. And then 12 is like working on first play tape. And then 13 crew is starting. We've seen papers of that. So, and I think next year we have to start working on like the 14, 15, 16 plans. So it's crazy. So
yeah,
there you go. 2023. I think we did a few things.
The other two things we have to call out: one, Emerald, of course, came to TFT, in case you guys weren't aware. And
The
then
first I'm hearing of it.
we're shipping Spectator, which is really, really hype.
Oh, Spectator is great.
So players know this came through a hackathon from another team within Riot that just is not building it just for TFT, but for all modes across League. But yeah, I think it'll be really exciting for you to be able to spectate your friends. I know I'll be watching Kent get 8th, which I'm really excited about.
I mean, we used Spectate to make Vegas happen. Like it was.
It's true. Yep, we used it at Vegas.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's great.
Bunch of new portals coming in 14.1 as well.
Oh, heck yeah. Wandering Trainer portal, let's go. Oh,
Yeah.
Witty, did you get your portal in?
Oh yeah, so 14.1, there's going to be a new portal called Crab Rave, so feel free to check that out next patch.
Ooh.
I think that one will be fun. It'll mess some people up, but it'll be fun.
There'll be some really fun ones. Basically, we saved a lot of the special spicier ones for 14.1, so it'll be here in the new year.
So TLDR, I'll have to clean them up on 14.2 when players hate half of them. So, all right. Well, we went over our 2-hour mark, so sorry about that. But to wind it up, like I said, it's a long year. Anything you each want to say? I'll go in reverse order this time. Alex, anything you want to say to wrap it up?
I mean, it's been a great year for TFT. I want to give a shout out to all the internal teams that we partner with, like localization, publishing, legal. Like, I don't think people realize how often I have to email legal of like, are we allowed to use this? Can we use something that looks like Conquest spell? Like all those little things, especially just like all the other just like disciplines within TFT that don't get shouted out, like visual design, UX, engineering. Like there's so many people. Like TFT is huge. Like our team is huge. We're a growing game, and I just want to make sure that the whole squad gets shout outs for all the work they do because it's insane how much work they put in. Like all of that UI stuff was like Nyong, one of our engineers, just like crushed it and just put it all out for set 9. Like she's a beast.
Agree.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Ken?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of things in this year. We were, we already mentioned this a bunch of times with the word ambition. Like we've created so many cool things, and we're very ambitious, and we're going to hopefully continue to do that into the future. This is also a year of like learning. We learned a lot from the things that we've tried, but I'm really happy that even though they maybe didn't land well, we tried them and we're learning from them. We're going to improve on them because there's like a nugget of great in there, and we need to be able to harness that.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it.
Sweet. Witty?
Yeah, this year for me, kind of doing a 10th set. I've said to some people, if you had to ask me, before the game shipped, whether or not we would make a 10th set, I don't think I would have said no, but I don't think I would have bet on it either. So not only to make a 10th set, but for the 10th set to be our biggest set ever, and for the game to be on this like large upwards trajectory, that I probably would not have bet on. I would have been like, great, the game's probably doing okay. Maybe we're still making sets. Maybe they're not as large effort as they were in the early days. That's probably what I would have said, to be honest. So it's been super honest, and it's just been because of the way that the community and all of you have responded to the game. It's the fact that everyone gets so excited for sets, gets so excited for content updates, plays the game so much more than we're ever able to play it before sets launch internally. Just the response has been awesome, and so if the response continues to be huge for both playing the game, coming out to LAN events, engaging with the community, streamers, videos like this, that's the kind of stuff that really does fuel the game and fuels us. So I guess that's my little soapbox of it's been so cool to kind of see the whole journey and make it this far.
Agree.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I guess on my end, I'll just say it's pretty wild because the thing I always have to remind myself is like we're on the age of social media, right? We see all the negative and the clickbait and whatever, but Vegas was a nice reminder, and like how Set 10 is doing is a nice reminder of just how many players are out there that are just enjoying the game and loving TFT and sharing our passion and, you know, trusting us to make an awesome game and giving us our support and things like that. So I'm just really grateful for all the players that genuinely enjoy TFT and let us get to do this every day. So thank you for that. And I don't think in my wildest dreams I thought I would get to have, you know, talk with 3 coworkers for 2 hours about a thing and have people enjoy it. And it's very, like I said, I'll use Alex's word that he used 100 times, surreal. It's very surreal. So, and as we head into year 5, like I said, the fact I don't think I've ever worked on a game this long. So that'll be pretty crazy. So here's to 5 more, hopefully after that. But yeah, so
Wow.
Cool. There you go. There's 2023 in review. That's going to do it from us. We'll be back for 2024 after we open presents and probably play TFT and see who gets hard stuck Emerald first and all that stuff. So
That's what we're going to be talking about when this video ends.
Yep. Cool. All right.
All right.
Well, that's going to do it from us. Until next year, take it easy.
See ya.